even to us was really quite a revelation, and we really applaud JMPD for doing extra work to prove to Parliament that we are not here to play. We do have substantial evidence to back up whatever challenges that we're having. So Tony is not going to talk about anything new. What Tony is going to be presenting is in the presentation, our frustration over the last 3 years dealing with Home Affairs. Tony, the floor is yours.
Maybe before Tony starts, if we can get the document so that we can get members.
It's being emailed.
No, Parliament will do that for you. We are now in Parliament. Let's get the copy so that as we get other presentation, members can try to interact with the document. Then we can proceed on, Tony.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. Good morning, Minister Mutsualedi, honourable members. My name is Tony Tivonuchurizan. I'm the former legal advisor to Mayor Mashaba and his current Director of Communications. I want to just give some background in time and context specifically with regards to the legal challenges and the efforts that the city did make in total good faith with the department to try and find a working relationship together and ultimately a solution to what we do see as a crisis in the city of Joburg. If I go back to mid-2017, there had been a complaint laid against the mayor for alleged xenophobic comments being made by the African Diaspora Forum, which is one of the largest migrant organizations in Johannesburg. I don't want to go into all the details around that, but ultimately there was a settlement agreement reached with the Human Rights Commission and the African Diaspora Forum where we found common ground with one another, and ultimately the African Diaspora Forum wanted to join the city of Johannesburg in taking Home Affairs to court to force them to do their job. Ultimately, I think it's important to note, and unfortunately we do not have migrants here to speak for themselves, but many migrants are desperate for the situation to be resolved because they are waiting for their papers. And on that, I want to read a judgment from the Supreme Court of Appeal dating back to 2016. It was a 2016 judgment of Scalabrini Centre, Cape Town versus the Minister of Home Affairs. In this judgment, the judge was quite scathing, and I want to quote one paragraph. As regards the decrease in the number of asylum seekers and alleged improved efficiency in dealing with asylum applications, the department overlooks the fact that according to its own records, as at May 2015, there was a backlog of some 100,000 files which had not yet been decided by a refugee status determination officer, and a backlog of more than 100,000 cases which had not been decided by the Refugee Appeal Board. Save for a board allegation that they are being addressed, the answering affidavit is silent on any progress made with these backlogs or whether they have increased since May 2015. Apart from this, the alleged efficiency is questionable. I would really want to implore the members that we are dealing with a human crisis, and if we are trying to help foreign nationals as well in this process, it is vital that the department is held to account to ensure that it fulfills its constitutional mandate. Coming out of the human rights settlement with the African Diaspora Forum, the mayor started to write further correspondence to the ministers at the time. Notably, towards the end of 2017, the mayor gave the Department of Home Affairs a time frame within which to provide the city of Joburg with a concrete plan to address the challenges of undocumented migrants within the city of Johannesburg. No plan was forthcoming. However, as we are well aware, there's the Intergovernmental Relations Framework Act, which compels us at all levels of government to do everything possible to avoid litigation, unnecessary litigation in court. We have to exhaust our internal remedies. On the 7th of December 2017, we got correspondence from the state attorneys in which they suggested the establishment of a joint committee between the Department of Home Affairs and the city of Johannesburg. This was an intervention which the city was very welcoming of, because ultimately we did want to work together in the interests of our residents and foreign nationals alike. Towards the end of December, we received draft terms of reference, which were wholly unacceptable to the city of Johannesburg. They were vague, they had no specific time frames, and were not specific in what needed to be achieved. Ultimately, the city saw this as a delaying tactic to ensure that they would be able to keep the city out of court in perpetuity. After further correspondence between our lawyers and the state attorneys, the city ultimately agreed to have a meeting with the then DG of Home Affairs, Mr. Ekurhuleni. In March 2018, that meeting took place, in which DG Ekurhuleni gave us gave a substantive presentation, and we believe genuinely wanted to work with the city in finding long-term solutions to the challenges that were being faced. It was the instruction of the Executive Mayor Herman Mashaba that Ekurhuleni, the DG at the time, and the City Manager of Johannesburg, Dr. Ekurhuleni, would work together with administrative officials outside of political office to find a working way forward on this matter. Unfortunately, as you are well aware, DG Ekurhuleni later resigned, and from his resignation, this process has ultimately collapsed, and the city is not able to work with the Department of Home Affairs in finding these solutions. And I want to give one example because the city is currently in the process of drafting papers to file against the Department of Home Affairs on one of these matters. Temporary emergency accommodation is a major challenge that we face in the city of Joburg, and this goes back to the Blue Moonlight judgment in the Constitutional Court, which requires that anyone, and it does not matter what your status is, anyone who is rendered homeless as a result of an eviction or some other kind of natural disaster must be provided with temporary emergency accommodation. And it provides a joint responsibility between local government and province, and we are expected to proactively budget with regards to the provision of TEA. More than 2 years ago, there was a fire in one of the hijacked buildings in the city of Johannesburg, Cape York. It received a lot of news attention at the time. The city went on to have to provide emergency accommodation to an excess of 120 undocumented foreign nationals who were residing in that building. Of course, we understood that this was our responsibility in terms of the Constitutional Court judgment, and we willingly did so. It has been more than 2 years. These are undocumented foreign nationals. We have tried to engage the Department of Home Affairs on numerous occasions. MMC's son spoke to the issue with regards to overtime. A major issue we face with the Department of Home Affairs is that the officials refuse to work with us outside of normal office hours because they do not get overtime pay. This is something that seriously needs to be addressed, because you have a huge challenge when you're going in to try to identify. If you're trying to find the status of individuals during working days, it's often better for these operations to be conducted at night or in the early hours of the morning. In this specific case, the city is still housing these individuals at Wembley Stadium, and this is more than 2 years later. And this brings into serious question, what does temporary mean? Because for 2 years, this has been the financial burden of the city. And I must put this in context as well. We are dealing with a 300,000 housing unit backlog in the city of Johannesburg. We have a housing crisis, and we need to ensure that our resources are put properly there. Right now, what we have in the city of Joburg is that a city which has got no constitutional mandate whatsoever when it comes to migration issues is currently essentially running a refugee camp within the city of Joburg. This is the reality of what we are dealing with. We have been on raids in hijacked buildings. We have seen the living conditions of people. Ultimately, what we are calling for is for the Department of Home Affairs to fulfill its legal obligations in terms of the Constitution of our country and relevant national legislation. We want to ensure that there's processing of foreign nationals within our country, and in the necessary circumstances that they are provided with the necessary documentation. Ultimately, many people are trying to enter our country and are living in desperate conditions from neighboring countries in particular, due to political, social, and economic conditions. We need Home Affairs to come to their assistance, because right now, they are living on the fringes of society. They are being taken advantage of by slumlords and drug traffickers. They are unable to properly integrate into our society because they are forced to live in the shadows of our society. If we want to see social integration within our society, social inclusion when it comes to South Africans and foreign nationals who are trying desperately to set up a new home in South Africa, we need to see our people need to have confidence in government's ability to do its job. Ultimately, we want to see our constitution upheld and the interests of foreign nationals protected. Thank you very much.
Honorable Executive Mayor, maybe your
Yeah, thank you very much.
In some seconds, you're closing.
Yeah, thank you very much, the chairperson and the committee for this real privilege. I think we've waited now 3 years to really have this opportunity. This is our last resort. We don't have anywhere else. I don't think it is proper in terms of intergovernmental relationships for us as a municipality to take Home Affairs to court. That is why we opted on this route, on asking Parliament intervention in this matter. Thank you very much for this great opportunity.
Yeah, thank you very much. That is the second presentation. Can we take the presentation of the City of Ekurhuleni? Executive Mayor Masina, the floor is yours.
No, thank you very much. I will assume that the presentation was received. I will try to shorten the input so that we stay within the time allocated for the work. Firstly, let me greet the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee and the Portfolio Committee members, Minister, Deputy Minister, Mayor Mashaba, the President of SALGA, and all other members of the Joint Committee that are here. When we were invited as a city, we did not know that we were going to discuss the state of dysfunctionality of the department, the national department, which in my view is really an unfortunate topic, as I see from my colleague Mayor Mashaba here. Because Home Affairs does two things in the Republic. Firstly, amongst its responsibilities is the civic responsibilities. In my city and probably somewhere in South Africa, we know that when the child is born in the country, a birth certificate is issued within the set time period. And we know that any adult in the country has got the smart ID. Those who are fortunate enough to get married, they get their marriage certificate on time. Those who travel, they get their travel document on time. If you are dead every weekend in our city, we don't bury people without a death certificate. So for me to say that there is an abdication of responsibility, it will be an unfortunate admission, especially at this level of the Portfolio Committee. Now, if we are dealing about the issue of immigration and shortcomings, let's have that conversation. And I would like to take the Portfolio Committees into confidence about the issues. And we will also all know that the lead time for processing of all these critical documents has significantly improved in different areas. So I am not by any means trying to be a spokesperson of Home Affairs. I'm just stating the facts as I know them, because I have undergone all these processes myself and I know the efficiency that have been demonstrated over time. Perhaps the issue on immigration is the issue of the asylum seekers and refugees, and which we'll have a conversation about. Now, when you opened this meeting, Chair, you referred to the visit by the UN Commissioner on Refugees, and some of the things that he said that the reality in South Africa is that our country is overwhelmed, and this originates from the 2008 economic collapse, where we saw quite a number of people coming into our shores for this reason or the other. And this is happening at a time of economic uncertainty and there's social tension that is boiling in our communities. And for me, those are the issues that we need to be dealing with. You will know that we have committed as the ANC-led government at various levels on the program around social cohesion to ensure that we build tolerance amongst communities. And that commitment for me still stands, and that's what we should be looking at, whether we're dealing with South Africans or foreign nationals, documented or not documented. Because we will know that documenting somebody does not change the behavior or attitude. It's one aspect. So the critical thing is, what is the issue here at play that we need to be dealing with? You will know, Chairperson and members of the committee, that the country has recently signed the Continental Free Trade Agreement, whereas we are going to ensure the movement of people and goods. So to sit in the Portfolio Committee to say that, no, if you are not documented or documented, is exacerbating problems in communities is perhaps a misplaced debate that we must have. So for me, we would like to have a sustainable debate about what needs to be done to ensure. At the center of everything, Chair, is that we must all ensure the rule of law. The application of the rule of law for me is critical. And now, and why I'm raising this thing is then to go in and point out who are the people who are responsible for the movement of people in particular. You know, you have got not less than 7 departments that are critical at the border post in dealing with the issue of movement of people, be it Home Affairs, the Department of Agriculture, Environment, Defense, Intelligence, Health, SARS, and so on. So this committee, if we're to deal with the complexities of including the police, we will have to ensure that all those key stakeholders at national level are actually aligned in terms of ensuring that we deal with the issues. And that brings me to the next issue that I want to address about what Chapter 7 of the Constitution says about local government. It talks about the object of local government having to provide a democratic and accountable government for local communities. And secondly, ensure the provision of services to communities in a sustainable manner. And thirdly, promote social and economic development. And fourthly, promote safe and healthy environment in different communities. And it goes on and on and on. Now, when you were referring to these issues, you did allude to the issues of the 3 layers of government and their different responsibilities. So we will not, as a city of Ekurhuleni, come to this forum to seek to get a portion of the responsibilities of the national government in terms of managing borders, but we'll rather come to the portfolio committee to deal with issues that affect us. Now, what characterizes the situation that confronts us in our metro is that we have seen the element of criminality and looting that has been taking place over a past period of time, in particular, if you look at the last incidents that we witnessed in the month of September. So we are having this conversation in mind, dealing with some of the complex issues. We have a population of about 3.3 million people in our area, and within the 112 wards that are allocated to us. And the rapid growth that we have seen brings about forced urbanization in our areas, and it reinforces the spatial segregation that was enforced even during apartheid. And all these are issues that we think we need to be dealing with. Now, what is the ideology of the ANC-led government that underpins our issues of migration? You will know that as early as in our recent conference in 2017, we spoke about the role of the ANC in building better Africa and a better world. And so by no means, in some of the incidences that happen, we'll shift away from the party political line in terms of, and what do we mean by that? We mean is a prosperous, stable, secure, and peaceful Africa that remains as an important object of our policy position as the ANC. We have recognized from our establishment in 1912 that South Africa's prosperity and success is linked to the success of the entire continent. So in everything that we do, we have that at the back of our mind. So we would like to believe that for us, that's the issue here. Now, what are the issues that are critical that we should perhaps deposit as part of this ongoing debate that seeks a solution to the work that we are doing? Is that it will be important by all relevant task departments to regulate the movement of people, inclusive of visitors into our country, either the refugees or asylum seekers. So we've got to find a way in which we increase our capabilities to ensure that that is properly regulated. The other issue that we refer to is around the rule of law, where we're saying basically it will be important to note that there's different pieces of legislation that have articulated quite succinctly what needs to happen. For instance, if you look at South African firms and businesses that are undertaking employment of undocumented foreign nationals at the expense of South African citizens, there's very clear labor laws in the country that spells out the 70-30 split in terms of that. But if it is not implemented or monitored, especially at our level, the local government level, or even at Department of Labor level, we will have the crisis that is confronting us now as a country. And we're saying that it will be important for us to work together to deal with those issues. Now, when we experience this recent surge of violence, we arrested over 265 people, a majority, and then we also worked with the department, with embassies to ensure that we repatriate over almost 379 people to go into different areas. Now, what are the impacts of the undocumented foreign nationals? So some of the issues that we want to raise is that we know that as cities, including us as the city of Ekurhuleni, we are faced with complex socio-economic challenges, especially of youth unemployment, poverty, and inequality. So that's why it's important that we must emphasize the rule of law and ensure that at all material times we ensure that that is enforced. The second area is around ensure that we prevent encroachment in our borders, and we make sure that our borders are not as porous as they currently are. And I'm sure that there are some of the initiatives that the Home Affairs and other stakeholders are working on to ensure that that work is being done. The increased number of hawkers have a negative impact on some of our cities, so we're therefore saying that documented or undocumented, those who come into the country, they must adhere to the rule of law and ensure that they play according to the rules that have been set up, including what we've experienced, the increase of the illegal mining activities, which approximates about 70% of the miners are said to be undocumented foreign nationals, especially within the gold belt in our city. So this leads to a demand of unplanned service delivery within our city. And we are saying that we've got to work together with all the law enforcement agencies to make sure that we deal with that. Now, the effect of this is that some people who are here use some of the municipal services without proper billing, so that affect the fiscus of the municipality, and especially in some of the local businesses like the spaza shop, we have had a number of initiatives where we've dealt with the sale of counterfeit goods, which is on the rise, and other issues that we have witnessed. So all these issues, including the unfair trading competition, because foreign nationals who are running spaza shop, they basically do bulk buying, and we're saying that there has to be a return of law. Everyone must act according to the Business Act and ensure that we were able to assist our own local businesses as metros. Now, the impact of all of this is that we must, as cities, support the efforts and initiatives of all levels of government to ensure that we deal with these issues. There is an impact also around issues of human settlement, especially where government is trying to deal with the issue of the expansion of the informal settlement. We find that there is a resistance, especially by some of the foreign nationals who do not qualify for our subsidy housing scheme, who actually want to ensure that this phenomenon is exacerbated. So if we make sure that the rule of law reigns in the country, things like this will be avoided, especially around the human settlement, the land use right, and so on and so on. So these are the issues that we are looking at in safety. Our police, because of the inability to know. And one of the things that we're beginning to pick up is that, in fact, even if we can document these people, if they're not documented at home, it has a zero effect in the way. So there has to be a way in which through our diplomatic channels, there are engagements in dealing with these issues, so that if our police make arrests here, we can link those individual citizens to their countries back at home. There are certain areas in our city where we have seen some illegal activities taking place, and we really would want to engage Department of Mineral Resources, the police, and other arms of government who can assist us to deal with the illegal mining around the Benoni area, to deal with drugs and prostitution around the Boksburg area, as well as Brakpan and drugs in Edenvale, and the hijacking of buildings in Germiston. We've got a number of initiatives that we're undertaking to deal with those things. But also the impact of this on health, we've seen the expenditure growing exponentially, and we're saying that work must be done there. And there is a new phenomenal chair of the medical shopping, where some of the foreign nationals move from one clinic to the other, taking medication like the HIV/AIDS drugs, sending them home, either in Zimbabwe or Mozambique. And we really have to make sure that the sum total of this, if we have to bring back the rule of law, we must make sure that certain things is done, in particular around the borders. As I move towards the conclusion, because we all have looked into this thing, what we would like to propose, Honorable Minister and the Chairperson, is that firstly, we must ensure the effective and consequential border management and control. We know that we are having a conversation which would like you to expedite around the border management agency that is going to actually help us to pull together all these different pieces of legislation that have caused a cumbersome environment in our localities to deal with the issues that is confronting us, so that you can work together. The second thing is to ensure effective relationship between different spheres of government in order to ensure that we can create decent work and sustainable livelihood for our people on the ground. And the third issue is just enhancing intergovernmental relation to support us as cities to deliver on our mandate, not us as cities wanting to take the mandate of national departments. And the fourth issue is around ensuring that we regulate and enforce the participation of foreign nationals in the formal sector of the economy, so that we keep or ring fence the informal sector of the economy amongst the citizens, so that they can improve their livelihood, broaden the localized law enforcement forum, including all the law enforcement agencies, to ensure that there are joint operations to deal with things like hijacking of buildings, which has become rampant in our different cities. Review the Immigration Act in order to address the abuse of the waiver provision, and consider the utilization and integration of cities' courts as immigration courts, because we know that we have not at this point established the immigration courts according to Immigration Acts. We would like to extend these services at our municipal court, so that we can expedite some of the issues that are coming up, but also enforce the labor laws regulation, as I spoke about, the 70-day apportionment in favor of South Africans, because this is what, in our view, is bringing tension on the ground beyond just documentation or not being documented of foreign national. And then also, so these are the things that we are proposing as a way forward, which we think should constitute the work that we must do. In conclusion, Chair, we can write each other many letters. The frustrations of government requires proper coordination of, not of individual, of institutions of government, in order for us to have an impact. So if there is a problem in Johannesburg, in Ekurhuleni, in Tshwane, other metros, including small municipalities, it requires a very strong, as proposed by SALGA, inter-ministerial or intergovernmental committee that is going to look into what is the government approach given the provision that is made in law about the things that we should be looking at in different spheres. so that all of us can make sure that we work towards ensuring that we deal with the problem. For us as a city, what is creating the tension in localities, because South Africans are not xenophobic, is the current socio-economic prevailing condition, which is not just about the city or about the province or the country, it's global. So we've got to find a solution that is going to touch on the lives of our people in order for us to make a meaningful contribution. I would like to end the program, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Can we take the last presentation? Honorable Minister, you can proceed. Your time has started.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chairperson. Let me acknowledge you and the honorable members of the Portfolio Committee on Home Affairs as well as on COGTA. Let me also greet the President of SALGA, Mayor Binkadimeng, and the two executive mayors, Mayor Mashaba and Mayor Masina, and welcome this opportunity, Chairperson. Chairperson, I am trying my best, my really level best, to understand exactly what is that which Mayor Mashaba wants. I really want to understand it. I want to put it up front that at no stage did I ever seek not to cooperate with any of the executive mayors or any of the other mayors or local government in dealing with issues that Home Affairs is faced with. After all the human beings found in this country, whether they are documented or undocumented, they live in municipalities. There are no human beings that belong to Home Affairs out there, which are called national. There's no department that is national. I mean, there are no people that belong to national. They belong there. And up there, we make rules and policies. Now, I'm going to make a short presentation of what we're all about, because I realize quite a number of issues are not understood. But let me deal first with this issue of not cooperating. Chairperson, Mayor Mashaba met me in a funeral of a doctor who I went to school with, and we met there. He complained to me bitterly about having conducted ministers of Home Affairs over the past 3 years, and they are not responding. He also raised the issue that he has corresponded with me, and I'm not responding. That was in July. I was just a few weeks in the department. I then confessed to him that I've never seen any correspondence from him But I'm not challenging that it might be there. It's just that I haven't seen it. And I said, if it suits him, he may resend it on Monday. I went back to the department, and I found that the correspondence was there, only that I have not yet seen it because we're still setting up administration, getting to a new office and all that. And of course, Mayor Mashaba kept his word. He did resend the documents which he has done. But when I met him that Saturday in a funeral, apart from telling him I haven't seen correspondence, I asked the mayor that I've just arrived in the department and I need to learn lots of things. Because if I rush to meet him without knowing anything, I'm going to look like a fool. What am I going to tell him? When you arrive, I've been in government for a long time, Chairperson. When you arrive in the department, you look at the structure of the department, then you call people one by one to present to you. Some of the presentation can take more than a day. And I told him I'm still in that process because the Department of Home Affairs...
Honorable Minister, there is a hand that keeps on...
Yeah, thank you.
Honorable Makluva.
Thank you, Chair. I want to respectfully ask that it is best for Home Affairs to present the presentation, and perhaps after that, the Minister can respond to every presentation. You know, we're going to waste time responding to a certain municipality. Perhaps we can follow that route, or I'm not too sure what the procedure is, whether the Minister is going to respond now to SALGA, Ekurhuleni, as well as Gauteng.
Yeah, thank you. Honorable Chabane.
No, I thought the response by the Minister is part of the issues which are raised in one of the presentation of Councillor Mashaba. And I think that's the presentation that the department is trying to also respond on the issues that are raised. There may be no opportunity to do that other than the slot that has been given until we're going to enter into discussion. So I think we must allow the Minister to raise the issues that are being raised by all the presentation, including the one that is on the platform. Thanks, Chair.
Honorable Mkalipi.
Yeah, Chairperson, I think let us allow the Minister, because I'm from COGTA, I'm not from Home Affairs. And I want to understand thoroughly why we are here as COGTA as well. So that background that the Minister is giving is also going to help us as the COGTA portfolio committee to grasp what is the real issue before the Committee of Home Affairs and us here. Because we are going to end up being spectators without knowing what is happening. Let us allow him to present, and then we'll be able to engage after that.
Honorable Muela.
No, Honorable Chair, I think I'm in agreement with the other honorable members in mirroring Honorable Mkalipi. Remember, even Honorable Councillor Mashaba, I nearly said former councillor, but Councillor Mashaba, when he was presenting, yeah, that was on a lighter note. When he was presenting, he started with a background so that we can be able to understand Councillor Mashaba. So let's allow the Minister to do the same and give response, and then we'll go into details. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, on a point of order, with due respect, what the Minister is explaining is in the papers all in front of us. I've read what the Minister explained now. It's in the communication in front of us, so maybe the members don't read.
Okay, you're recognized.
No, on a point of order, Chair, I think let us be honest to ourselves, because even the issues that were raised by the outgoing Honorable Mayor are contained within the presentation. And now what the Honorable Minister is doing is to responding to one of the cries as outlined by the outgoing Mayor that he was not finding joy. So we are getting responses from the department, which is in line with what we are here for. Unless the honorable member does not understand what was the issues as raised by the outgoing Mayor.
Thank you.
So I propose that we proceed and allow the Minister to articulate and give a contextual understanding of the issues as presented by the outgoing Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I think, honorable members, we have had a long presentation. Honorable members, when they want to engage generally now, that is why we are interrupting. But our attitude of starting the meeting was giving every presenter 30 minutes. What he does with that 30 minutes, it's up to the presenter and the presentation. Whether he reiterates what is in the presentation, it's up to the presenter. Whether you bring us additional information, which was the case in other presenters, that is up to the presenter. All that is important that we give the minister and the department their 30 minutes to present. So, Honorable Minister, the floor is yours. I'm sorry that we just interrupted you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Yeah, before I was rudely interrupted, Chairperson, I was outlining the background to what I understand Councillor Mashaba is here for. Because he's saying he is putting a cry to the committee to help to get the Department of Home Affairs to cooperate. And I'm trying to respond to that. I don't know what Honorable Metlua is all about. And when Councillor Mashaba was presenting, he never said anything. He presented in a way he deemed fit to put his presentation. May I be given the similar privilege, please? Now, I was saying, Chairperson, I then told Mr. Mashaba that I'm still taking presentation. Because, Chairperson, the Department of Home Affairs consists of two arms, as you can see there. The first arm being the civic matters, which affect 57 million South Africans. It's about getting a birth certificate. It's about getting an ID. It's about getting married. It's about no, we don't deal with divorce. Divorce is Minister of Justice, it's not us. We don't divorce people, we marry them. Yes. It's about being buried with a death certificate. It's about being given documents to leave the country and coming back. And I was still taking presentations from officials about those, because the civic arm is the biggest. I had not yet even taken any presentation about the second arm, which is immigration, which was the interest of Mr. Mashaba, and rushing to go and sit with him without even knowing what the whole immigration is all about. That meeting was not going to be fruitful. I was going to look like a fool, and that's what I told him. So on Monday, when I arrived in my office to find out, I actually got a surprise, because in that meeting, unlike in this presentation, which now states that certain ministers met him, when I left him, the feeling was that no Minister of Home Affairs wants to meet him. And I wanted to go and investigate and find out what were the reasons why ministers of Home Affairs may refuse to cooperate with a big city like Johannesburg, which is the economic hub of the country. I then found that Minister Gigaba met Mr. Mashaba 4 months after Mr. Mashaba came into office. They did meet. If he's not happy about the results of that meeting, that's another story. But they did meet. And I found that because I only came in June in the department, I found that in January on the 17th of this very year, Mr. Twele met Minister Mashaba. And it was not because of Mr. Mashaba's request. It was Minister Twele himself who extended an olive, and said, yes, an olive branch, and said, let's meet. And they met in the Sandton office. And they even, Randburg office, they even released a joint statement together, which has been given to me this morning. A joint statement on what they are going to do together and on issues discussed. And one of the main issues was the civic thing, the issue of IDs. How many IDs have been printed by Home Affairs but not collected, and that the mayor must help. There were 90,000 of them. So that was the civic arm, which they discussed. Then they came to the issue of migration. I was also told that the provincial manager of Gauteng, after that meeting on the 19th of January, that meeting was on the 17th, on the 19th, the provincial manager, she wrote a letter to the Joburg municipality, Johannesburg municipality, asking them to come together to start implementing what was discussed in the meeting. I made to understand that that letter was not responded to. I was not there, I don't know, but I heard that the provincial manager, because Home Affairs has got provincial managers, he said, let's continue where ministers have left off. So I just wanted to clear that part. On my part, I'm still very much prepared to meet with the mayor, because I've now taken all the presentation, including immigration. I've got an idea what governs immigration, what are the rules, what's happening there. I can meet him. But at the time I got ready, he already ran here to you to look for help. And I said, no, let me respect this process. And I would also like Councillor Mashaba, as we sit and work, it's wrong to sit and talk together as leaders in a meeting. The following day, you see tweets running around about, the fact that we've been confronted in a meeting, we've met and all that. I don't think that is decent for leaders to do, because then we'll start competing and not solving this problem, which is a huge problem, Chairperson. We've never denied the fact that migration is a big problem in our country. Now, the mandate of Home Affairs, as you can see there, is to facilitate and regulate the secure movement. That is the mandate under immigration. I've already dealt with civics. And to determine the status of asylum seekers, to confirm and provide enabling documents, and to enforce immigration legislation and deportations. Now, at the moment, Chairperson, the borderline of South Africa is managed by the South African National Defence Force. They are charged with the responsibility of managing the borderline, and this includes prevention and detection of illegal border crossings. The Department of Public Works is charged with the responsibility of installation and maintenance of borderline fence in order to prevent illegal crossing of people, animals, and vehicles in places that are not designated as ports of entry. Now, we accept, Chairperson, that these functions, and we have said that many times, even here in front of this portfolio committee. I presented to you once the PPP, the APP, sorry. I then presented the progress. We did not hide these things, that we do have porous borders, and they are very problematic. And we presented to you the plans on what we are trying to do about the porous borders. I arrived here late in your meeting, Chairperson, because the Joint Cabinet Committee is sitting on the MTSF, and we're going to present some of these plans about what we are doing about migration. I came here, the Deputy Minister followed me because I had to leave to respect you to come here. He was still presenting on the plans which we are going to do on the issue of migration, among others, which we also presented to the Portfolio Committee in details about what our problems are. Now, I want you to understand the whole issue, because, as I said, it's a very complex global phenomenon. On the board there is the graph of migration patterns in South Africa. As you can see, from 1998, 4 years after democracy, the number of people who used to come here asking for refugee status, the asylum seekers, in 1998, there were 11,135. And as you can see through the graph there, the highest, which happened in 2007, in 2006 was 53,000, and in 2007 it's 45,000. And the department was used to dealing with that, and its structures are designed to deal with that issue that happened since 4 years of democracy. All of a sudden, in 2008, you see a big jump, which nobody was expecting and nobody was preparing for. Those blue bars there, a big jump. That big jump started in 2008. And 2008 is the year in which, there was economic collapse around the world, including ours here. And so people feeling under strain of economic collapse, rushed in large numbers to South Africa, whose designed processes of welcoming migrants and asylum was not designed for, because nobody expected it. But nobody ever foresaw and expected that there's going to be a world economic collapse. From that time, we started experiencing very serious backlogs. The figures that one of the members of the mayor is quoting here about appearing in court, about 100,000 and all that, they appeared from there, where you used to dealing with 45,000, 20,000, 16,000, you suddenly have 207,000. And the following year, 223, meaning in 2 years, South Africa received 500,000 people who were looking for asylum and migration. And I'm repeating, our systems were not designed to carry that. We have got to see how to meet them. But also, we were also in a recession, if you remember. So we didn't have resources to correspondingly say, look, there are too many people more than that. We used to have 5 officials, let's increase them to 10 or 20. We didn't have such resources. It did not mean that as more and more people come, we are now able to correspondingly respond and give enough resources. I also told that issue to the Auditor General when he was worrying about budgets. I presented to you that our budget is being cut in the MTSF by 5%, 7%, and 9%. So I cannot sit here and say because there are 200,000 people more, at 45, let me increase the budget 5 times because that's what it means. I couldn't because the budget was actually being decreased. Now, what is the solution of this issue of porous borders? We never denied that our borders are porous. And the committee knows it's recorded in all your documents. What is the solution? We thought the solution will be to establish a border management authority, which members of parliament know. The bill was passed in the National Assembly in 2017, and somehow it got, because of certain complications, especially between Home Affairs and Treasury, it got stuck in the NCOP. Since May, Treasury and Home Affairs have been sitting together. We have resolved the issue. Last week, the Select Committee met with the DG to present the bill to them because they want to take it forward with a view of passing it by the end of this year and making sure that the Border Management Authority, which will now deal with the borders and resolve most of these issues. We believe that is the key, Chairperson. Because as I go on presenting, you realize that Home Affairs is not just holding its arms. It does deport people. And it's a very painful exercise. We don't want to be doing that to human beings, but we do. But it doesn't help because of the lack of border management authority. So we are showing you here statistics, Chairperson, because I said the first solution, that's our first prize, is to establish the Border Management Authority. And maybe before that, I need to explain how it's going to work. At the moment, at the ports of entry, we've got 7 government departments or entities who are working with 58 acts of parliament and working under 7 different commanders and And we believe that's part of the problem, even when you come to the gate at the port of entry. The Border Management Authority is going to make them all fall under one authority. So that they've got a CEO or a commander or what under one authority. It will also have border guards that make sure that people come officially. The Border Management Authority is not to stop people from coming to South Africa. It's to make them come through normal legal channels. And that is what we are all about. Now, we never said we are waiting for the Border Management Authority, and therefore we can't do anything. The Department of Home Affairs is still carrying its mandates, like the inspectorate. Just in 3 months this year, that means in the 3rd quarter, from July to September, 56 operations were conducted by the inspectorate. They conducted 56 operations and arrested certain people, and those are some of the operations. Going to cell phone shops, chain stores, general dealers, saloons, other businesses, restaurants, factories. I'm just putting the statistics for that quarter. I haven't put statistics for the previous quarters or the rest of the year. So it's not true that Home Affairs is folding their arms. They are working every day around the clock. There was also a claim that Home Affairs officials worked up to 4 p.m. When there is an operation and they are informed about it, they give overtime. There's no time at which Home Affairs inspectors will say, we are off, we don't work. We issue overtime, but subject to Treasury rules, which says nobody must earn more than 30% of their salary in overtime. So they are restricted by Treasury regulations, but they do work overtime, especially if they are operations. That's why they were able to carry this operation. If SABC calls operations, Home Affairs is there. If JMPD from Johannesburg, police, the municipal police, if they call an operation and they inform us, we join them. Because there's no point in carrying an operation by only one arm of government. You need police, you need Home Affairs to process, you need all that, and we've been doing that. And these are some of the routing inspection operations. With the dates there, under Ukawamala, we have shown exactly the areas where they've taken place. We have shown that because these are weekly operations in which a total arrest of 458 people have been arrested in those operations. We are even showing you some of the problematic areas because we know them. In Actonville, Hillbrow, Berry, we know all this because our inspectors are there on the ground working. That's why they know that there are all these operations. I also went with the Minister of Police, Minister Kele, Minister of Police, to Yeoville, where there was an outcry in the committee. We said there, Mayor Mashaba could not come, but he sent his representative, Mr. San, is it San? The MMC. Yes. Yes.
Order,
He was sent, he was with us.
Order, Mkhalip.
But he apologized, he said he's rushing somewhere, he couldn't stay with us. We listened to the community there, speaking to us about the issue of brothels, crime and all that, and each person telling us that they are not xenophobic, but they want law and order. And we agreed with them, we outlined those things. And so it was a meeting which was held by SABC, Home Affairs, and the municipality. That's why I'm saying I get a little bit confused as if one is sitting this side and refusing even to meet with the other. That's not really how I understand it. There are other crime combating operations, which you can see there on the board because it's not only one. And we deport, Chairperson. We deport, and I'm giving the figures of deportation. Those people are not deported because they bring themselves. They were found through the process of Home Affairs. 2015, 2016, 33,000 people were deported. 2016, 17, 23,000. 2017, 18, 15,000. 2018, 19, 24,000. 2019, 2020, just this year alone. These are the figures up to June, up to September, from at the beginning of the financial year to September. 11,000 people have already been deported. But our problems, as it was said, which we accept, is the fact that after deportation, they come back because there's no border management authority. That's why we said this is the single most solution that we are looking forward to. Now, the Department of Correctional Services, every month or so, but quite often, they send us a list of foreign nationals who, whether they were documented or not, have been arrested. They've served time between 30 days and 18 years. That's what I receive almost every week or every month. People who have served time, who were arrested for criminal activities, because once you get arrested, we no longer care whether you are documented or not. You are no longer wanted in South Africa. We declare you an undesirable migrant, and we put it in your passport. Now, this year, up to, from April 1st, 2019 to date, 970 such people who have served time in South Africa have been given to us. We've declared them undesirable migrants, and we've taken them to Lindela, and the process of deportation started. and quite a large number of them were deported. When you deport people, you don't just arrest them in the streets and throw them over. They've got we have got to follow processes, including calling ambassadors of those countries to come and identify at Lindela and say, yes, these are my people. But remember, we are dealing with people here who came illegally. Some of them even reject the countries they come from. When we call the ambassador, he said, no, I don't come from that country. I come from the other. And we get stuck there to find out exactly where they come from. And why do they do that? Because they want to choose countries where there's war. Because if there's no war in a particular country, if there are no problems, they won't be able to justify why they ran away. So they always choose countries where there's war and reject their own ambassadors, and it becomes a very difficult issue, which Home Affairs inspectors must investigate, and it takes time to do something like that. Now, I just wanted to finish up because the presentation from the mayor here is that Home Affairs has collapsed. Or is it collapsed or dysfunctional? I want to assure the committee, as I don't know whether the committee believes that, because we have actually presented to you. We serve 57 million citizens in 412 offices. Every year, we issue 3.1 smart cards. We register birth. Mr. Mashaba was talking emotionally about somebody giving birth today. Yes, it's our job. 816,000 births were registered within 30 days. You see in our APP, our progress report, we have shown the portfolio committee. That constitutes about 88.9% of all the children were born. And we are not saying we issued birth certificate to only 88.9. The 88.9 is where we issued within 30 days of birth, because it's one of our policies. Others were issued later, but within 30 days, 88.9 birth certificates were issued for children who were born, because the total was about 1,816,000. There's no department that is dysfunctional that can do something like that. We issued over 900,000 passports to South Africans who want to leave the country, and I can go on and give you this type of statistics. Now, Chairperson, as we deal with these issues, we must understand that immigration is a global issue. And we also get our guidance from organizations like the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. We get guidance from the International Office on Migration. We met them. And indeed, last week, I met Mr. Filippo Grande, who is the head of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. He came to South Africa. He met the representatives of the refugees themselves. You are aware that many were holding sit-ins at the offices here in Cape Town. When they heard that is coming to Pretoria, they held the sit-in in Pretoria. He met them and understood what their problems are. He then came to meet me about these issues of migration. He then went to meet the president, and he issued a statement, and it differs from what I'm hearing here, because he said South Africa's progressive laws and policies have provided a safe haven to many vulnerable people in need of protection and support, but South Africa is overwhelmed. And I think he mentioned the statement overwhelmed because we did show him these graphs, and when we show him figures, he said, this is overwhelming. And he decided and declared that they are going to help us to deal with this overwhelming situation. He listened to them, and many of them raised their issues, including the fact that when they are not documented, they don't get access to services and jobs. And I informed the commissioner that, no, this statement is not true. Nobody is denied a service or a job because they are not documented in South Africa. You know that. I've once mentioned it, I was in health. There's not a single patient who was returned from any clinic, as Honorable, the Executive Mayor of Ekurhuleni said. We don't return people because they are documented. They deliver babies, they get immunization, they get ARVs. Nobody has been returned on account of not having a document. We serve them. Secondly, I met with the Minister of Basic Education. Immediately after receiving a report that some kids are sent home from schools because they are not documented, I said, no, allow the kids to go to school. Let us as parents document, because no child must be deprived of education because they are not documented. And the minister issued a circular, which we also told the High Commissioner about. Then comes the issue of jobs. The issue of jobs, Chairperson, you understand it very well, is a problem faced by South Africans also. Every single South African is faced with this problem we assist with. It's not only foreign nationals, and they are not deprived of jobs because of documentation. I'll tell you why. There have been 3 court judgments here in this country. The Wachenuka judgment of 2002, where the judge ruled that because South Africa does not put people in camps, they have to fend for themselves while they are applying for asylum. They've got the right to work. That's a ruling in court, and that's why some of the employers employ them. So there's nothing that says because this person is a foreign national who is undocumented, they can't get a job. It's a court judgment, and which is being respected. The other judgment, Bula versus the state in 2011, was about business. Again, that because South Africa does not put people in camps where they are helped and fed by United Nations and other agencies, they've got to fend themselves. Even if they are still applying for asylum, they don't have any document, they can own a business. And lastly, the Somali Association in 2014, where the judges ruled that when they are still applying for asylum, if the Section 24 notice, it's 24 or 22? 22, sorry. The one we give you for 6 months to keep on applying for asylum because we give you that permit for 6 months. The ruling was that even if it's expired and the process is not yet over, that person cannot be sent away. So all these rulings have got a manner of protecting, and that's why the High Commissioner was saying South Africa has got progressive laws which protect the vulnerable. If we are still unable to issue documentation, it's because we are overwhelmed because of that graph. The Commissioner even said we appreciate South Africa's challenges of hosting refugees at the time of economic uncertainties and social tensions. We'll continue to support the government in its effort to build the social cohesion and appreciate the President's call for tolerance and dialogue. Now, lastly, Chairperson, the statement from UN says, United Nations High Commissioner for Refugee recognized that, like many other countries, South Africa is confronted with challenges of addressing increasingly complex population flows. Asylum systems have become under immense strain as conflict and persecution drive more refugees across borders, while migrants resort to asylum channels in the absence of safe, regular, and a migration option. This is a global challenge. That's what Mr. Grandi said. And he said preserving fair and efficient asylum system is vital. But to function effectively, they must be accompanied by safe, regular migration channels and other arrangements. And he ended up by saying they met with business people, they met with civil society organizations, and he asked them to support the vulnerable and create opportunities for them while they are in this country, while some of them are waiting for documentation. Now, Chairperson, I want to repeat again, we are ready to meet, whether SALGA, the Executive Mayor of Johannesburg Municipality, the Executive Mayor of Ekurhuleni, none of us alone can be able to solve this problem. I've now taken these presentations. I know what immigration is all about. I know the laws, I know some of the rules. I might not have completed that. I'm ready to meet the mayor. In July, I wasn't. I was just going to sit there in front of him like a stooge and listen, and I don't think I was going to solve this problem. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Yeah, thank you, Minister. We are going to allow the members to have their time to engage to the presentation. But you'll recall that at the opening, at the outset, we said that we had called this meeting of the Joint Committee on the basis that generally there is no person who's called national, like somebody said. All these things happen in municipalities, And it may be important that whatever we want to resolve in terms of our laws, we looked into these things jointly so that we can come up with either incremental or progressive way forwards in dealing with this thing. Members who are expected to also, as we engage, to make sure that we come up with progressive or incremental solution to deal with the problem that is before us. Like I have said, we're enjoined by the Constitution of the Republic, Chapter 3 in particular, that speaks about the 3 spheres of government, how we must work with one another in resolving the problems. And it will be a taboo that another sphere of government, like it was presented, will take another sphere of government to court. But courts have already expressed through case laws that we need an exhaustive means of ensuring that we meet with one another, find solutions before we can approach court. I think this is one of the tools that we want to use to make sure that we address the problems that have been raised. Thank you very much, Minister. Can we take hands from members? We'll start with Honorable Lizelle. Mkhize will be number 2, 3. And Honorable Mkhalibe, 4. Then we'll take from that side in this order of sequence. In this order of sequence. Then you'll be the last. Honorable van der Merwe.
Chairperson, may I make a request? I hope you don't be rude to ask members to, because we have got 2 portfolio committees here, to introduce themselves so that when we respond, we can say honorable so-and-so rather than say number 1, number 2. If it suits the House, I'm just making that request.
It's well accepted. Honorable van der Merwe, you will introduce yourself.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and thank you very much to the ministers, the mayors, the officials present. I'm Liesel van der Merwe. I am a member of the Portfolio Committee on Home Affairs. And Chairperson, I think I want to echo what you've said earlier. I think the whole idea of all of us being here together today is really not to unpack who said what to whom or who met whom at what point. The fact of the matter is that we do have an undocumented migrant crisis, and it's not only Mayor Mashaba that has said so, but even the deputy ministers on record saying so, even President Ramaphosa have said so. And so the job before us is for all of us to find solutions. So I don't really think it should be about whether people met one another or not. And I heard Maya Masina speak a lot about the ANC's manifesto, but I also know that the ANC's manifesto do make reference to the fact that illegal migration is something that must be tackled. And I don't want to read the quote because I'm not an ANC member, but you know it is in your manifesto. And I think also, I mean, I've said this before in a Home Affairs Portfolio Committee, I think the incident that unfolded in Johannesburg, where our own law enforcement officials came under attack by undocumented migrants, it shocked our nation. And I've made the example that, you know, I can't just, as Liesel van der Merwe, go to China and open a store and when, you know, and operate illegally, and when the law enforcement officials come for me, then I attack them and I get away with it. So I think we are here to prevent further situations like that. But I think some of the questions that I wanted to ask in terms of data. Do the metros have any reliable information to support claims that the majority of our spaza shops are currently being run by undocumented migrants? Because I also recently saw a figure that said that our South African economy is losing about 7 billion in terms of contributions which are lost because these companies or these small businesses do not pay VAT or tax. So I wanted to know, in terms of the shops run by Chinese, Pakistani, Bangladeshi, Indian, Somalian nationals, so in other words, our China malls and our spaza shops, how many of them do we have reliable data? And Minister, which visas would these business owners hold? I think that is important because you often tell us that many of the asylum seeker permits are being turned down, the applications are turned down. So I would like to know what type of visas would these business owners hold. Then, I think, Minister, you speak a lot about the Border Management Authority Bill, which I think is an important intervention going forward. But my question always is, what happens in the interim? Because until the Border Management Authority Bill is passed, we've got undocumented migrants in South Africa at this very moment. President Ramaphosa recently said these undocumented migrants must be documented. So my question is, what is the plan going forward? Also, I would like to know, in terms of your inspectorate, you speak about your inspectorate and that they're doing work, but quite frankly, I don't think we've got enough of those individuals working in the inspectorate. So maybe if you can tell me, how many people do we currently have in your immigration inspectorate? Vis-a-vis, what are the numbers needed to actually, for them to function properly? And I'm asking this again against the background that we know that in the trucking industry, in the hospitality industry, and many other industries in South Africa, we've got many undocumented migrants that are working there. I want to know, in terms of corruption, how many officials are currently serving jail time for selling fraudulent South African documentation? To the department, to the city of Johannesburg, you said that 21% of babies being born in your clinics or people using services are undocumented migrants. I wanted to get to a figure to that, ma'am. I know you said 21% of people are undocumented that are using the services. Can you give me a figure? What does that translate to in terms of numbers? And to the minister, I would like to know currently, because you are issuing documentation to babies being born to undocumented migrants in our hospitals. Also, if you can give me a monthly figure on that. And then I would like to know, there was recently a discussion to say, and I remember Mayor Mashaba speaking about the pressures that undocumented migrants are having on healthcare clinics in terms of clinics running out of medicine. I remember recently there was a talk that we should be billing countries countries for the medical services that their citizens are utilizing in South Africa, whether that is happening or not. And then to my last question, Mayor Mashaba said that in Johannesburg, they arrest many people who are in possession of fraudulent documents. The JMPD arrests many. I would like to get numbers of those as well, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. My name is Pretty Pindisile Chaba. I'm from COGTA Committee. Chairperson, my question, firstly, it would be directed to the Minister. Minister, I hear that many immigrants here, they are not documented. But what I can say, the problem that we have about immigrants, it cannot help even if you can document them all. I won't even encourage you to document them. Other question. Also, we'll be going to Honorable Councillor Mashaba. Councillor Mashaba, I can hear all the time when the president deploys ministers in the Home Affairs, you cry about Home Affairs. Whatever minister is coming in, you cry. You are the cry baby all the time to the Home Affairs. I don't know when are you gonna stop this issue of crying to the ministers of Home Affairs, because this issue is not, it cannot be a truth directed to the Home Affairs alone. This issue needs cluster. It's a big issue, this one. It needs police, it needs the health minister, it needs the SNDF, Yes. I don't think it can be only Home Affairs. It needs cluster, actually. Security cluster, everywhere. But the Honorable Mashaba, also I can ask you, as a mayor of Greater Johannesburg City, what is your bylaws in your city? What says about the immigrants, your bylaws in the city? Because every city is supposed to have a bylaws to make sure that it takes care of the city. Before you come in Johannesburg, there was a program of Ukai Mulau. Where's that program? Ukai Mulau now. Because it seems like you forget all those things, Mayor. You're busy with Home Affairs. With ministers, they must come to you and account it to you and account it to you. But I don't think it can help the people of Johannesburg, that things. It's better if you write to all ministers that are directed to this issue. Because it's not a Home Affairs only. And also, Honorable Councillor Mashaba, the people of City of Johannesburg, they are crying also about you, that you are billing them under estimation of reading. Your people, they are not going directly to the meters of residents of City of Johannesburg. They just estimate and bill, you accept. What happened to you? Because you came here as if you are alone, who are working, but other people, they are not working. But your city, people are crying on the ground in the City of Johannesburg about the billing system. What are you doing about the billing system in Greater Johannesburg yourself? You see, sometimes it's good to cry about somebody who are not doing his or her job, but also
Point
yourself,
order,
you must
Chairperson.
check yourself. What are you doing?
Point of order, Chairperson.
Yes, point of order.
Thank you so much. I am Angel Kanyile, member of Home Affairs Portfolio Committee. I understand that we have all received agendas, and right in front of us, we are discussing the issue of illegal immigrants and not the billing system. The issue that is raised by the Member of Parliament is irrelevant. Can you please discuss the issue that is in front of us, the issue that is on the agenda? Thank you.
We are talking about the life of the people here.
Now let's
Honorable Member.
let's intervene, members. Let's try to keep the question quite direct so that we are able to elevate issues and have an incremental way of trying to deal with the problem. So let's come to the questions.
Okay, thank you, Chairperson.
And when we ask also, let's note that we have a lot of other members who are going to, who still want to ask, but over and above that, they still need to have a chance to respond.
Okay.
You can proceed.
Honorable Chairperson, as
Proceed.
I close,
Proceed, yeah.
Maybe let me stop there, Chairperson, because I don't want it to go further. Thank you.
You must not feel intimidated. If you feel you need to come back, you can still raise a hand. Don't feel any intimidation. Let's take the, yes.
Thanks very much, Chair. My name is Celia Brink. I'm a member of the Co-operative Governance Committee. Chair, my impression, listening to the Mayor of Johannesburg and his officials, as well as the Minister's reply, the dominant impression is of a city of Johannesburg that is desperately trying to have a meaningful conversation with the Department of Home Affairs. And that meaningful conversation is just not happening. It's just not starting. there seems to have been a break in this at the end of 2017, where some fruitful discussions happened with the Director General of Home Affairs and Johannesburg. It was agreed that a joint committee would be set up, because I can imagine this is how intergovernmental relations work. Some sort of a formalization, the joint committee, that was an agreement. The Department of Home Affairs then suggested terms of reference, and the City of Johannesburg wanted to discuss those terms of reference because they said it was too vague. And this seems to be the point where all meaningful conversation just broke down. There was no subsequent meeting, cancelled meetings, etc., etc. And I have a great empathy for the minister's predicament in being new in the job. But frankly, the correspondence from July that has been unanswered to this date suggests that there is a lack of seriousness and earnestness in the department, if not by the minister himself, certainly by the people briefing him. And so wouldn't it be an excellent idea if the minister and the mayor of Johannesburg can make a commitment to say, we will meet and clarify the terms of reference of that joint committee so that we can start pooling our resources and our energy to deal with what is essentially an issue that falls within the scope of the minister's duties. One of my colleagues suggested, Chairperson, that the mayor and the Johannesburg write to all of the ministers. If he can't even get one minister to respond, what would the use of that be? So maybe it would be a fruitful next step for the minister and the mayor or the city administration to say, let's thrash out those terms of reference. And what would the minister's response to that be? Because that's a concrete, positive step. Thanks, Chair.
No, Chair. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. My name is Desmond Mueda, a member of this Portfolio Committee, Home Affairs. Well, Chair, I think I must first appreciate the responses provided to us by the Honorable Minister, Dr. Motsoaledi. We are impressed by the work done so far, Honorable Minister. I think what we need to do is that we need to give you the necessary support that you deserve as the department, because in a short space of time after your appointment as the minister, together with the deputy minister and the team, so far you have done so much, a huge progress. I think we need to outline that. We know, of course, that there are challenges, not to say you don't have challenges, like your issues of financial constraints and so on, which we need to attend to them as a matter of urgency so that we are able to tighten whatever matter that you are faced with in that department. But safe to say, Honorable Minister and the team, the progress you have made so far in this short space of time, the 3 months or 4 months, is commendable. What needs to happen is that Honorable Minister and the members of this portfolio committee, both COGTA and Home Affairs, SALGA, all stakeholders, as the second speaker was articulating, the other honorable member, you are not alone, Honorable Minister, going to fight this matter alone as the department. We need to join hands in gloves. We can't be crying babies each and every time, all of us. It cannot be. We need to take a stand, all of us as leaders of different societies and as leaders of different spheres of government. We have got a responsibility to take, all of us. We can't each and every time shift goalposts. But all of us, because we are elected, we need to play a role in ensuring that whatever challenge that we are faced with, we meet one another halfway. So in saying so, Honorable Chair, I want to say we want to commend the role and the progress made by the department. It's commendable, and we are committing ourselves that we will work with you, together with you, and all other stakeholders as we are doing today, because we are gathered here with different stakeholders in trying to resolve the challenge that we are faced with. So throwing stones to one another and so on, it won't solve the problem. But coming with good proposals, it will help South Africans, because this is not just a matter of this presidium, but it's a matter that must be attended by all of us as responsible citizens of this country and as responsible leaders of this country. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair.
Thank you. Let's start from that side. Honorable Kanyile. Oh.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Thanks very much for the presentation from two mayors and the minister. Chairperson, we have been called here as the COGTA Portfolio Committee, but I just want to put on record that we are not even sure why we were called here, because this meeting is good as between the outgoing mayor of Johannesburg and the... Can I be protected, Chairperson?
Protected, yes.
Members, can you protect yourselves from Honorable Mkhalipi?
Chairperson, I was saying that when I was listening to both of them, I thought this meeting was not even necessary to take place at this level. These are the leaders who can even meet outside this platform, especially us, because we're subjected to come and listen to the issue that could have been resolved by both parties. As a result, we don't have our regular meeting, which we have a long agenda. We have issues as COGTA that we need to be solved. That is my observation. When the mayor of Ekurhuleni said he was ambushed, it also makes it worse. But why are we here? Even the mayor does not know what is the issue before these both portfolio committees and the mayor, who is a counterpart of Ekurhuleni. So I just want to register that observation. Tina, as a COGTA, we have so many issues that need to be dealt with COGTA. To come here and waste our time, I really don't appreciate it. We are going to relate it to our chairperson. Unfortunately, he's not here. We got an apology, but we are going to talk to her because we feel that we have so many issues as COGTA. But coming back to the subject, you know, outgoing mayor, we must not make a mistake of wanting to criminalize black people. That thing, we must not make that mistake. But I was listening to you attentively when you speak on your opening remarks. I was very happy because we were very also careful to say that we don't want to criminalize them. But we must not fall into the trap to say that foreigners, we are referring to black people from Africa.
Yes.
That one, it must not be a mistake. And we must not even be ambushed to come to portfolio committees to commit such mistakes, to call our fellow brothers and sisters from Africa as criminals. Our duty here as lawmakers, chairperson, as activists, as political leaders, is to make sure that we address the real issues. We must make sure that we hold departments accountable. When I was listening to the Minister of Home Affairs, he said one of the interventions that Home Affairs is having is to implement the BMA. Fortunately, I was part and parcel of Home Affairs on the last term. So we know about the process of the BMA. It could be one of the intervention. But now, currently, in all crises that you are facing, what is Home Affairs doing? That is the only question that Home Affairs must tell us. I think the DG will help in that regard. Because We must not be told that we have a crisis at a clinic level, whereby now we are confused how to help our mothers, our sisters. That is a non-issue. Comrade Minister will agree with me and other comrades who are progressive here, that today these borders that you are talking about is not our own making. These borders is as a result of colonialism and the self-hate that you are having amongst Africans were perpetrated by apartheid. To come here and discuss how are we going to eliminate our brothers and sisters as criminals is wrong. We must separate between criminals that is happening in the country, because even South Africans are committing those crimes. But to say that everything is done by foreign nationals in the name of African brothers is wrong. What is needed here is one of your solutions that is proposed by the president of SALGA, which is very progressive, and also by the Minister of Home Affairs. Let us not lose the insight and focus of United Africa. Let us address the real issues, which is poverty, unemployment, and so on. That is the crux of the matter. And I believe, Minister, at an executive level, you can discuss these issues because we need a coordinated policies. I think Mamki's tried to cover that. Different departments must take their time and address the real issue that South Africa is faced with. The president of SALGA is correct to say that once this thing of xenophobia is taking place, it's taking place at a local government. It's affecting our people there. And as a result, our people are fighting black-on-black violence. Because of what? Of unemployment. Because of what? There is no local economic development at a local level. Our people are frustrated because they are not employed. That is the truth of the matter. And when we discuss these matters, we must not claim as if we don't understand what is the real issues. And I appeal to you, Minister, to discuss this thing with your colleagues at an executive level. At our level as portfolio committees, we ought to discuss this issue. I remember we even called the Minister of Police at one point, because there was also the very same issue in front of our portfolio committee. And we told him to say that, Minister, as much as we are expected to do your job as a police minister, but at the back of your mind, don't forget what is the underlying issues. United Africa is the solution. One currency is the solution. Let us address unemployment in South Africa. Let us address poverty. The BMA is one of the solutions, because not to avoid our people moving from one country to one country. The issue of the dignity here is South Africans as Africans. It also has to play a role. Because what is happening here, we are not treating our black Africans as we treat Europeans. Europeans are business people. Our black Africans are what? Are corrupt, are drug dealers. We are saying, we must be clear to say, everyone who is a drug dealer, whether it's a South African, Nigerian, Zimbabwean, must be prosecuted. But we must not solve problems on hate, because we can't hate black Africans. So that is my contribution, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Kanyile.
Thank you, Chairperson. We welcome the presentation from the Mayor of Ekurhuleni, City of Johannesburg, SALGA, and from the Minister. I wish to concur with the Minister that every time when we report issues to him, he tries at all times to intervene. At the same time, I also want to state that even though the Minister joined the Department of Home Affairs in May, the Department of Home Affairs has always been there. And I also understand Councillor Mashaba's frustrations, because looking at the letters that are in front of us, it is very clear that he has tried on numerous occasions to get hold of the department or to get the department to intervene in helping them to try and resolve the issues of illegal foreign nationals. Because they have also indicated that these issues, they hamper the issues of service delivery. What I would like to know from the department is that why did it take more than 3 years for this meeting to finally take place or for us to actually finally discuss this matter? And is the department in agreement with the statement that the xenophobic attacks that we experienced this year would have been avoided should they have responded to Councillor Mashaba's first correspondence? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to all the presenters. I think certainly in a number of the presentations where I didn't expect much, I learned a lot about the dynamics around the situation. But I think it's important that we bring into focus why we are here. And really it came about as a result of recent attacks that were in the media. It's things that affected our position in the world from a diplomatic point of view, our perception at a time when we are dealing with economic hardships. And I think it's very important to really re-emphasize that we are here to talk about the promotion of social cohesion. How do we prevent xenophobia? How do we manage illegal immigration? So there was a lot of technical detail, but I certainly have a few questions with regard to social cohesion and how that is being promoted. And really there's two things here. So the one aspect was we were asked for a plan. So Mayor Mashaba wrote to the committee and said, I've been unable to engage with the Department of Home Affairs since 2016 in a meaningful way that just gives me the plan that I need. And then secondly, the issues of public perception. An issue of public perception, we're in a society where there's a lot of vague information. There's vague information out there. Even if we look at our policy paper on immigration, it's very difficult to find out. There's sort of general allegation. And the SALGA presentation was interesting for me in terms of the call for not only looking at metropolitan municipalities, but also smaller municipalities. And to answer that question, there's an app called XenoWatch. So unfortunately, I can't show it on the screen right now. But what XenoWatch is it's every xenophobic activity in South Africa or a report or a potentially inflammatory situation that is going on. And it's very telling in terms of where our problem lies. So if you look at XenoWatch, and you look at the number of incidents, 58% of the xenophobic incidents, and we're talking about today, issues that are there today, 58% of them are in Gauteng province. So basically 348 are in Gauteng province, 110 in the Cape Town municipality, 79 in Ekurhuleni, and then a few more scattered around. So the point I'm trying to make here is that when we speak about metropolitan municipalities and they need to engage, we look at these statistics and we say it's across the country, but we need to bear in mind where these incidents are focused. And where are people coming? They're coming to areas where they're seeking economic opportunity. And I think it's been highlighted by a number of speakers. We brought up the incident or the concern about the refugee reception office in Cape Town, and we were told the problem is really coming from the north. People are coming from the north, and their first stop is going to be Johannesburg, Tshwane, Ekurhuleni. That's where their first stop is going to be. And so I'm glad to see that the SALGA has some sort of a mandate in terms of supporting the informal trade. But I was quite amazed to see the outcome of that report, the GCRO report, which said that 80% of informal traders are South African. So I find it difficult to believe, but perhaps it's either incorrect or it highlights the fact that there's a horrible misconception. If it's really a fact that only 20% of informal traders are foreigners or foreign nationals, it raises the question, why is there this perception out there that almost every single informal trader is a foreign national. And so my question to certainly the department in that regard is, if this is the case and that study has been done, then why is this misconception, and what will the department do to correct that misconception? If we are seeing 80% of informal traders are in fact South African, and that is a government survey that has shown that, what will the department do to correct that misconception? Now, if you look at that report as well, what it highlights is that when you look at South African informal traders versus foreign-owned formal traders, the biggest difference, or the biggest issue there, is capital investment. So the reason why the report says that foreign nationals are able to open larger informal trading businesses is because they bring capital, or they have access to capital. I'm sure they're not getting it from our institutions, so they're bringing capital in, and they are able to engage in things like bulk buying, etc. So my question to SALGA in that regard, in terms of promoting small business development in that regard, is based on this finding in the report. Has SALGA engaged with the Small Business Development Department to find out how funding mechanisms can be put in place for these informal traders in our metropolitan municipalities? And it's important that we understand the importance of these metropolitan municipalities, because in the white paper on immigration, it quotes the United Nations report, which says that by their estimates, by 2030, we're going to have 71% of our compatriots are going to live in these cities. People are migrating to these cities, they're going to live there. And so a reason for COGTA to be here is that the risks have been presented in this regard, in terms of the economic causes, or the perception that people are coming in and they are taking our jobs. Well, what that GCRO report also says is that foreign-owned shop owners, they employ more South Africans than the South African stores. So the information is all there, and my concern is really that what is out there in the public, and which is not being refuted, is that every single informal trader is foreign-owned, and they're taking all our jobs. So I'm calling for a response on that. Will it be refuted based on that knowledge? What is the position on that? Now, if we look at public perception, so here we have a bit of a challenge. In 2018, our police minister announced that we have 11 million undocumented foreigners, or foreigners, in this country. And that was immediately refuted by the Statistician General, who said, in fact, we only have 4 million. Now, if you look at the perception of crime, so the perception of crime, the Department of Justice, according to their statistics, 6% of our prisoners are foreign nationals. And that falls more or less into line with the idea that there could be 5 or 6% of foreign nationals. So there's this perception that there's this stampede, and we are unable to cope. Now, the one thing that I'd like to get clarity on from Home Affairs is in terms of the statistics we've been given, because it doesn't make sense, and I'm sure it doesn't present the picture of what's going on. So if we look at slide 6, which is to do with the asylum application statistics. So basically, if you look at it, it's a big downward trend from 2008, a rapid downward trend, and we're talking about 2018 at 18,500 asylum applications. And then if we go to slide, if we go to the slide on how many people were deported, then in the following year it's 11,000. In the previous year it's 24,000, where 24,000 came in. So it cannot be. What we're saying here is that these are the asylum applications, and more or less the same number of people are being deported. Now, what I'm hearing is that what is going on at reception centers is that people come and present themselves. I want to get documented, I want to apply, and they're given a white piece of paper and they're turned away. And therefore, they will not appear on these figures. So I'd like to get the Department of Home Affairs' response on that. It's an allegation that's been brought up with me that the reason why these figures are going down is because people are just being shown away. So they've come to present themselves, they've tried to formalize themselves. They don't have an official document that says I was there. They have a meaningless piece of paper and they get sent away.
Yeah, thank you. I requested earlier that members must ask such that we give others a chance, and we're also allowing time later for the department to respond. Otherwise, we'll ask without any response. Maglove.
Sorry, Chair. I just need 1 more minute.
Excuse?
I think I've listened to 2 hours of presentations, so it's important that we have a chance to ask our questions.
Okay.
I'll keep it to 2 minutes, I'll keep it brief. But these are important things, otherwise we're not going to get answers and then this meeting is a waste of time. 2 minutes.
Take high consideration of what I've said.
Yes. Okay. Then if we look at social cohesion, so I want to get an understanding from the Department of Home Affairs. If they talk about the fact that the city needs to enforce bylaws when we have these incidents, how can the city go there by itself and enforce its bylaws without the Department of Home Affairs checking the documentation of citizens and without the South African Police Service there to enforce what you're supposed to be doing? I'd like to understand in the Waterkloof situation, you've met with the UNHCR there, and there are documented and undocumented foreigners outside of that building. What has Home Affairs done in that regard? If you're fully aware of it, have you gone and checked the documentation of these individuals, or is it expected of the city to go and handle the entire situation by itself? And this is really the issue that is being raised, Mr. Chair. I think we hear that everything's under control, and then we hear that we're flooded. So the statistics and that doesn't add up. And my question to the department is really, instead of, we hear about a limitation of budget and that, the question is, what do you need? I don't think we've ever heard, what do we need? Do we need 100,000 officials? Or what do we actually need to solve this problem? Because until we know what we need and we know the full picture, how do we start to attack that and to chew off the pieces of the elephant? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Chair, thank you. I'm going to try to be short and perhaps submit some written questions to the various presentations. Firstly, I would like to congratulate you for opening the door for the mayor to come and make his presentation. It was 3 years. It's actually a disgrace that it finds its way now, and also during the time of the minister. And I want to say again to the minister and the deputy minister, I want to congratulate you for being there a year, because this is for me a sign how serious you take the immigration and xenophobia attacks that we have. It's an indictment for those who are not here. I think the rationale behind this was to have the whole cluster security here to discuss in depth and to see how best can we address the issue of immigration, how best can we address the issue of the xenophobic attacks. But what was lacking in some of these presentations was the social cohesion. And I think that is where we have to move to, social cohesion. What was lacking in these presentations that no one was prepared to tell us whether or how on a collective basis are they operating joint operations. I come from the Northwest Province. I've done an oversight in Lichtenburg where joint operations with SARS, with police, with DERCO, with every Home Affairs are being held. And I think this is what we have to do to address this. But let me take you to the legacy report. The legacy report makes it clear that the committee need to follow up the implementation of the high-level panel on key legislatures areas. I think that is our challenges. And I like, the comments that the BMA might be the solution, but I must remind members that the EFF and the DA did not support this in the National Assembly, as presented last week by the Select Committee. Now, the legacy report speaks of an ongoing work related to the implementation of the Global Compact on Migration, the AU Vision 2063, and the country's policy, not the ANC policy. It is actually a clap in the face for someone to come here and make a presentation and speak to the ideology of the ANC. We must speak on government issues. We are government. We are from different political parties here. It's a multi-party government. And if people come here and they make presentations, they must make presentations on what the country's policy is. And in this case, the country's policies on international migration and also the Refugee Act. There were no need for us to be here. If we would have gone back, and the department every time comes, Minister, and explain to us, but there is no proper report as far as the recommendation on the implementation of xenophobia attacks is concerned. So we need to address that. My colleague has asked a question to the Minister on whether he will engage with executive managers, municipalities, metropolitans to combating immigration. And I want to read the Minister's polite response. The Minister indicated, yes, with all structures. Now, this is the thing that we want to hear when it comes to xenophobia and the problems that we have with immigration. The Minister said also that he has joint and special operations that are conducted. We don't hear these when there are explanation of these. Joint operations have been conducted, also law enforcement through intergovernmental security structures. We don't hear this kind of reports. But I just want to go quick. If you look at the presentation of Gauteng, and I must say, and I agree with the Minister, I don't agree with the heading, the dysfunctional state of the Department of Home Affairs, after I've been taken through a tour. I think this is not a useful expression. It does in any way also not speak to the future and how we're going to solve problems as a collective, but they normally say the boring heading also means a boring presentation. But nevertheless, when it comes to some of the presentations by Gauteng, there's words like the Department of Housing suspects. So we need to find out suspects. What are the real figures when the Department of Housing suspect around 100? And they speak about considerable amounts. We also need to have them giving us an authentic figure what really is happening there. There are also on another page, it's not numbering this presentation, where the third quarter, only 4 properties has been raided and 2 undocumented migrants has been arrested. All the others were 31, 40, etc., etc. But I want to speak to the social cohesion again here. And the 1.3 billion that we have lost in the Alexandra Renewal Project that is in this presentation. What has been done so far to deal with the Alexandra Renewal Project to date? What has been done? Because even there we have foreign nationals there. And this has the potential to rise these xenophobic attacks in Gauteng. I'm not going to speak to the sequence of events. And then, Minister, I'm happy. I've learned and read that when it comes to the board, they don't have to sit, the 5 of them. Because this is actually the problems that we have when it comes to all of these applications. I've also learned that if there's one inspector, I sat in Lichtenburg, where there's one inspector, they can go on. But in terms of the inspectors, we also need to do something very seriously. Tswana alone has 34 inspectors, Joburg 34, Ekurhuleni 30. In total, in the whole of the country, we have 126 inspectors, which I think it is not acceptable. I also want to speak to the states of both Ekurhuleni and the states. I think, Chairperson, us as a committee, we must go and compare these things. There are no correlation. If you take the stats that is presented in front of us, and then you see the province that came to us, the province itself, there are no correlations with these things. So these things are copy-paste. And this is the outliers in terms of the lying factor of people coming here and present to us and think they will get away. We will not be able to solve these problems. And I want to say it again. And maybe we must consider having all other clusters here, because following the trend and what is transpiring in this meeting is actually disappointed. We must have all the security clusters here to see how best we can build that kind of cooperation if we go out there and address the question of immigration and address the question also of xenophobia attacks. And I must say, I see all those ministers, a number of ministers has left since the attempt of Honorable Mayor Mashaba. It was Mkize, Siabonga, and then on a lighter note, Chair Kigaba, he resigned. And when asked about the reason, he says that he resigned because he wanted to give the President Ramaphosa, his space. So I hope in this case where Mayor Mashaba has resigned, he wants to give me that space. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Chairperson, thank you very much. I will be as brief as I can. It's Hanif Hussain from the Portfolio Committee on COGTA. Fortunately, I have a little bit of knowledge. I served on the Home Affairs previously, so I could speak with a little bit of background knowledge on the portfolio. Chair, may I just say that I think that I sat here wondering what the purpose of our discussion was, and I realized that we've been called to a meeting to figure out why a minister and a mayor cannot meet. And I think that's quite embarrassing. For anybody who is watching this discussion today, anywhere in our country, I won't be too surprised if they have no hope in the levels of our government if they can't have a decent meeting to solve a problem that the both of them agree to. Both the City of Johannesburg and the Ministry agree that immigration is a problem in South Africa. And with respect, I also cannot blame Minister Motsoaledi given the fact that he's been there recently. But there can't be any excuse whatsoever for the department itself not meeting with the City of Johannesburg to resolve an issue that they themselves both agree is a problem. It's just simply not acceptable. It's not as if there's only one minister in the department. You've got an entire department. And I think my colleague briefly touched on it earlier. It's frankly embarrassing that an entire ministry and an entire city cannot meet to resolve an issue that both of you agree is a problem. It inspires no hope whatsoever in the people of our country. And I certainly do hope, Chairperson, that even before we leave this meeting, that the minister and the mayor will figure this thing out, because they both agree that there is a problem that needs to be fixed up. Why the departmental officials themselves, who are here, and perhaps maybe we can hear from Mavuso and the DDG of Immigration, they both know there is a problem. Why are you guys not dealing with it? Chair, what the City of Johannesburg is experiencing is no different from any other town and city across South Africa. They're all going and dealing with exactly the same situation, which is government's inability to control the inflow of people into South Africa and manage the outflow of people in undocumented immigrants in the country. We've talked about this before. None of anything that's been put here shouldn't come as a surprise to all of us. If there are, by some estimates, 5 million people in South Africa, undocumented immigrants in South Africa, and by the department's own estimates that it's going to cost on average about 2,500 rand to deport a single person. Minister Motsoaledi recently made a statement on the 40-odd million rand that we've spent already. The BMA is not going to be the solution to that problem. We have a problem in South Africa. Government knows about the porous borders. You've been singing that song for months and for years, but you haven't fixed it. You want to introduce a new system that's not going to fix that problem either. Because by then you'll already have the estimate 5 million undocumented immigrants in the country, and even if you fix the borders, what are you going to do with the people who are already in the country? You haven't provided a response to that, Minister Motsoaledi. The BMA might be your solution to securing the borders. But if you're not going to deal with the number of undocumented immigrants already in the country, then you mustn't blame South Africans for taking the law into their own hands when they have lost hope in your department's ability to be able to control immigration in South Africa. And so too must the Defense Department must take responsibility for the borders. I find it astonishing that they haven't been invited to a discussion such as this, because you can't hold Home Affairs responsible for the porous borders. It's the Defense Force that has the ultimate responsibility to protect our borders in the country, and they're not doing their job. For anybody on the Home Affairs Portfolio Committee who have not been to one of the borders, I would encourage, Chairperson, that you take your portfolio committee there. I've walked easily across through to Zimbabwe and Mozambique, easily, without anybody recognizing and undetected. It can't go on like that. And for as long as our borders are not secure, Home Affairs are going to continuously sit with the problem of high numbers of undocumented immigrants in the country, and the cities and the towns in South Africa are going to become the beneficiaries and the victims of that problem. It will continue. And we'll come back again for another meeting in another year from now with the same problem, because neither the Department of Home Affairs nor SANDF has put a solid plan on the table that can give us exactly what the solution to this problem is. Chair, I just have one question which I'd like to put to Minister. Minister Motsoaledi, Mayor Mashaba had made reference earlier to, I cannot remember the exact number of people now, and the reference is to the Wembley Stadium, where there are a number of undocumented foreign nationals that more than a year have been requested to get documented. Is it 2 years? Is there a response for that? How is it that your department's unable to, knowingly where people are undocumented, not go in and deal with it? Perhaps maybe the officials will be able to give you a better answer, but if it hasn't been done already, when are you going to do it? So that at least those undocumented immigrants will be able to enter into the system. You will be able to identify who's illegally in the country, and then at least do something about it. Chair, my closing comments is simply this. There is no question in my mind that there has been a genuine attempt by the City of Johannesburg to engage with the Department of Home Affairs to try and deal with the problem that exists. The evidence is there. We've been sent the correspondence. And I don't think it'll be fair to point fingers at Minister Motsoaledi. It's not his responsibility. He wasn't there before. But clearly the Department of Home Affairs must take the lead role in trying to resolve the issue of the high number of undocumented immigrants, not only in the city of Johannesburg and Ekurhuleni, but other places in South Africa as well. But I'd like to at least leave this meeting with a sense of hope that the Minister of Home Affairs will make some effort to make contact with the city of Johannesburg and Ekurhuleni to try and resolve it. Thank you very much.
Excuse me, Chair. I got a bit confused about the issue of a certain number of known immigrants not documented for 2 years. Can you clarify that?
Yeah.
If you are talking about the presentation from the city of Johannesburg, they said something about 100,000 that emerged in court. Which one are you talking about?
No, Minister, there's a reference to a building that was on fire, that people were evacuated and they were being held in the Wembley Stadium. It will be easier if you actually have a conversation with the Mayor Mashaba. He'll give it to you.
Thank you, Chairperson, Minister and Deputy Minister, and members of the committees. My name is Dikeledi Direko. I'm a member of COGTA. Chairperson, we do acknowledge the fact that the issue of immigration poses a serious threat to the municipality. Whether it's a district municipality, whether it's a local or a metro, the threat is there. And in terms of the local economic development, infrastructure, health, and essential services. However, Department of Home Affairs alone cannot resolve the matter. We need all relevant stakeholders to come on board and assist on this matter. And we also appreciate the presentation that has been made by the Department of Home Affairs and all the measures that they are taking in order to resolve the matter. But the issue is, the issue of immigration is currently on the limelight. What is it that Home Affairs is currently doing now in order to deal with the matter? And also, we also need to know to say, what is their expectations from us as Parliament in terms of dealing with this matter? In terms of the legislation, or either it can be the legislation, or it can also be other measures that we can assist on, especially on the issue of corporate governance, even if we can assist in terms of making sure that we bring all the departments together and come up with a solution to this matter. And the issue is that I think SALGA has made good recommendations. So it will also be advisable that we look at the recommendation of SALGA and assist that. And the other issue is the issue of municipalities, whereby they will be complaining to say Home Affairs, Defense, what is not doing, but only to find out even that their bylaws are not promulgated, which means they can't do anything, they are toothless. We must also have a look at that matter to say how do we deal with assisting municipalities so that whenever they go and say we are having these challenges, at least their house is also in order. And then on the issue that was raised by the mayor there, I think what also can happen is that Home Affairs has offices from the regional, provincial, and national. When there are matters that are of concern, it's not necessarily dealt by the minister alone. It can also be dealt at a local level. Maybe what needs to happen is that you can come up with an initiative of creating something like a war room, where all government departments that exist in your area, you have a meeting with them, maybe once in a quarter or once in a month, where you discuss issues of concern in your area and then make recommendations, then you do follow-ups so that you are able to be proactive while we are waiting for the national. And on the issue of two adults or two departments that are unable to meet, you can just, the minister is here, you are here, just try to find time and space where you'll be able to meet with all delegation from your department and you resolve your issues. I think that will also assist on the matter. And then lastly, there was an allegation that was made by the MMC, I can't remember the name, where he was saying they are aware of the corruptions that are happening in the Home Affairs. So we will also advise that all the allegations that you have, refer them to the relevant authorities so that we can assist you with the follow-up and find out that, and be able to deal with the root causes of the corruptions. Thank you.
I'm recognizing Khater.
No, thanks, Chair. That's not a problem. Chair, let me first welcome all the presentation, first from Honorable Mayor Mashaba and Honorable Mayor Masina and the President of SALGA, Honorable Mayor Nkadimeng, and lastly by the Honorable Minister Motsoaledi. I was trying, Chair, to summarize all these issues and why we're here and come up with possible way forward, because really some of the issues does not warrant to be elevated at this platform based on what we have had so far in terms of the commitments. Chair, the city of Joburg has raised issues that they are currently faced with the 300,000 housing backlog. And as a result, they believe that the inner city holds key to the solution in terms of ensuring that they address the issue of housing backlog and they build high-rise, densified, and low-cost accommodation within the inner city. But they're saying those buildings that they have earmarked are hijacked by the illegal immigrants. And this they have ascertained after they have conducted joint raids with the Department of Home Affairs and SABC. Now, to me, that's a sign or an indication of intergovernmental relation work in progress and not a hostile environment to one another, because they have been able in the first place to conduct these joint raids. Now, also, the minister has presented to us figures and operations that the Department of Home Affairs has embarked on in relation to dealing decisively with this issue of illegal immigrants. Yes, we might say such it's not enough, but at least now we are told that the Border Management Authority has been proposed as a possible solution to this challenge. Furthermore, Chair, Honorable Mayor Mashaba has also presented to us another stats of raids conducted, the number of undocumented immigrants occupying those buildings. And he's arguing that the stats is at the disposal of Department of Home Affairs. Now, the allegation is that Department of Home Affairs has failed to act on the information at your disposal. The Honorable Mayor is also alleging that the Department of Home Affairs has refused thus far to develop a proactive plan to address these challenges. Now, Chair, I think the issue that we need to intervene on, based on what has been presented, is to ensure that the intergovernmental relationship are strengthened between the Department of Home Affairs and the City of Joburg, and that they are able to sit down, iron out the issues as highlighted, and that everyone does what is expected of him to do in terms of the legislation and the law that are governing this country. And Department of Home Affairs has placed it on record today that they are willing to sit and engage with the Department of Home Affairs. I would like, therefore, to suggest that we resolve that particular engagement take place moving forward. It's not going to help to sit and argue who was supposed to do what, who didn't do what at this point in time. We have read the 46 dossier that you have forwarded to us as annexures of meetings that you have called and responses. But what I also like to propose and suggest in future, Chair, to the City of Joburg, that in future when there are draft terms of reference given to you, Honorable Mayor, yours is not to, when you are not happy with those terms of reference, you dismiss them and say you are no longer willing to participate. They will engage through your legal attorneys. You have stipulated in this dossier that you have forwarded to us that you would love to get those terms of reference. And as and when you receive those terms of reference, you're going to amend, edit, as and when the needs arise. But when they gave you the documents, you did not even bother to amend. You complain about it not having dates. Instead of you proposing dates and timelines, you reject them. So my proposal is that when indeed you are negotiating in good faith, you want to engage with the department, when they give you draft document, input on it instead of dismissing it completely and say you are no longer willing to engage. Now, coming to SALGA, you have, Honorable Mayor, you have stated that SALGA plays a very key and meaningful role in terms of engaging in migration structures, chaired by Department of Home Affairs. You also play a critical role in Legal Reforms Committee, also chaired by the Department of Home Affairs. But therefore, I'd like to get an understanding on why didn't SALGA intervene at that level on issues that are alleged of frustration by the City of Joburg? Because SALGA represent all municipalities and they are the voice. Why, if I want to rephrase, why didn't City of Joburg approach SALGA to say, SALGA, we are frustrated, these are our challenges, please intervene given the status of your engagement in terms of having representation in migration structure and legal reforms committee. What happened there? Can we get a sense and understanding? Because if that issue was elevated at that particular level, I don't think we would be sitting here today. So if I can get that understanding. So in short, Chair, and trying to submarine, I would propose, I don't want to say, I would be harsh if I were to say the City of Joburg was crying in the wrong funeral by coming here. But in essence, there is willingness to meet. So ours is to set timeframes of when are we going to get progress report on their engagement or meetings in relation to issues that have highlighted, and whether or not those progress report will warrant us summoning them here back if we're not happy with certain issues, or them first sitting and agreeing on how are they going to deal with these matters moving forward. So that would be my proposal. From us in COGTA, I think I would agree with my colleague, even though I don't tend to agree with her quite often, that that as COGTA we are inundated with serious challenges. This did not warrant us coming here. I serve in scope. I could have went and attend issues of. I prioritize this, but I don't. Chair, lastly, we must also try to avoid this issue. I don't want to say cry baby, and I'm not going to say that, but you know, when we were growing up, we were confronted with this arrogance of spoiled rich kids. If things does not go your way, then I pack my bags and go. We should not venture into such. All parties involved, because when I read the correspondence from the city of Joburg, it did not augur well with me to say, now you're going to engage with me through my attorneys and lawyers. Yet you are still saying you're engaging in good faith and you are committed to intergovernmental relationships. There's also SALGA that's supposed to be the voice. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Tidi Malole Khwase. I'm a member serving in the Portfolio Committee of Home Affairs. Chair, a lot of members covered many issues. And let me also say I note and acknowledge and welcome the presentations made. Our sitting here, we are not going to come up with solutions. The only thing that needs to happen is everybody must go back and do what is expected of everyone to do. We have policies, we have laws, we have bylaws. It can't be that we are called into such a meeting to come and mitigate or babysit a relationship between a mayor and the department. We must be sitting here saying, this is what we tried to do and we need help because going forward, we cannot address this and this and this and this issue. So in a nutshell, Chair, what I'm saying is we will not come into this meeting again to babysit a relation or to mitigate. For me, this was just a lousy call. I'm sorry to say it, but it was a lousy call. Somebody is not doing his or her duty and wants to hide behind the other. We are sitting here, we are listening to the mayor saying, I've been trying to get an audience. The department is saying, no, we tried doing this. Out of whatever meetings that sets, where are the results? We must not come into a session where we sit and give complaints to the portfolio committees. You must come to us and say, this is the progress made by the department or by the municipalities. And we need your assistance as members of parliament on 1, 2, 3, and 4. So, Chair, I'm just pleading, let's just go back, let's do our work. The time that we wasted sitting in this meeting, listening to how much the others are blaming each other, honestly, it's not working. We could have just went there and served our communities. We know what needs to do. Let all of us go back and do what we are elected to do, because all of us sitting here, we are elected to serve the society. Let us go and execute our responsibilities. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Chairperson. I am Kunika Mpumza from the Portfolio Committee on COGTA and Traditional Love. COGTA, that's it. Chair, the mayor of the city of Joburg, Mayor Mashaba, in his preamble was saying that he's making a plea to this portfolio committee after finding no joy from the department, which then we actually appreciate. However, when we look at the captioning of this presentation, it indicates that the Minister in the Department of Home Affairs is in a dire state of being dysfunctional. He qualifies that. I found that very much incongruent with his verbal presentation, and number two, that it was unwarranted, even if he was under distress as a mayor. That was unwarranted to qualify the department as dysfunctional. However, also in his presentation, he has characterized that the challenges that are confronted with at the seat of Johannesburg. But also, I was looking at the end, that the mayor was coming to this committee, that he would actually come with a recommendation to this committee to say how is he, as the city, looking at how to address this matter. But in this presentation, unless I didn't find the other one, the one that is termed an ambush document, it has not landed on my desk as yet. Maybe recommendations on that one. But in this situation, there's absolutely nothing. What the mayor is recommending to this committee to be done is actually addressing these issues. The minister, in his presentation, indicated that when the challenge peaked in 2008 because of the economic meltdown, the challenge peaked that in 2 successive years, he had almost over 500,000 Islam applications. And he verbally admitted that the system, indeed, the system was being overwhelmed in order to cope with the flow. From there, that period up to now, what remedial measures to address the system so that it responds to the emerging challenge? What has the minister and the department actually done in dealing with this matter? Chair, also on your opening remarks, you made a very clear indication that the Constitution directs all organs of state that the key to addressing policy matters and challenges in South Africa is cooperative government and governance. In these presentations, and also the presentation that was cited there as the objects of local government, the design character reflects that those objects, they require cooperative governance, that we must put a functional cooperative government organ of state to deal with these matters. So here there is an indication from SALGA that in the 5th administration, there was an attempt to provide strategic leadership by establishing the IMC to actually deal with these challenges, supported by a technical committee, if I was listening well. Minister, what are you saying around that? Because he said that this was chaired, that committee is chaired by your ministry. What are you saying around that? What's your take towards reviewing the issue of the interministerial committee? Because looking at the nature of this work, you are indicating that you have 8 departments that are to be coordinated to ensure that there is strengthened and coherent border management system, so that that authority that will be coming would have been having a clear leadership to oversight and monitor to ensure that the work is happening. What is your take around that to ensure that we strengthen, 1, cooperative governance, at the entry points and we integrate, because I get the sense that also your reception centers are disintegrated from your ports of entry. And what's the time frame towards ensuring that in actually realizing the issue of the border management agency, we actually effectively strengthen cooperative governance? Because I could see that that's the only weakness, that we are not putting up a functional cooperative governance system. We still operate in silos as these particular agencies or departments, because this function is cross-sectoral. So it requires that there is cooperative governance, and then it requires a strategic leadership to deal with that. What is your take on that, Minister? Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Note that we're left with 15 minutes, so depending on the questions and prolonging them, we may get written answers. In that sequence, coming this side.
Thank you, Chairperson. Let me firstly acknowledge the presence of our minister, our three mayors, Mayor Mashaba, Mayor Mahasina, Mayor Nkadimeng. I'm really honored to be here and listen to their presentation. The presentation made by the SALGA was really at high level, and also their recommendation, we appreciated your recommendation very well. And also the recommendation made by Mayor Masina was highly appreciated, and because he is talking of something that is really happening in his province. But the presentation, made by the Mayor Mashaba, I really tend not to agree with him, because I think the minister will agree with me that there were several press releases by the mayor of the city mentioned a number of undocumented migrants arrested in hijacked building or counterfeit goods, but does not report what the percentage of these migrants as it is part of total apprehended. The question is if the number of migrants apprehended is in line with the proportion of border issue with the city population, or if this is a migrants issue of merely part of the large concern. And another issue that is also a worrying factor about him in his presentation was about the issue of that there was no any engagement with migration business leaders or diplomatic presentation on as they are concerned. Then, as it is happened, I've also seen that the mayor also chose to engage with Home Affairs via his attorney on the proposed term of reference for a joint committee to address undocumented migration rather than propose the change as part of their last concern. So if you can read here, the minister came with a good the decision that they've made that they are going to introduce the border management authority. I think on all the problems that we are experiencing, or we are still going to experience, but with the ideology that the minister is going to introduce, I think all our problems are going to be solved of the issue of undocumented immigrants that are coming in our country. I think for so far, all of us, let's go back to our different provinces and do the right thing of respecting the bylaws that the SALGA has mentioned, that we must go and do the promotion of administrative justice and also to respect for the property rights and also the right to dignity that will also be done by all the South Africans to have the right to work and to earn their living in order to avoid the destitution. I thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. I think I've got only one thing to say. Everybody has said almost what needs to be said. The mayor of the city of Johannesburg had a problem, and he thought this is the forum that can help. So I want to give a solution to that. What we are saying is that the mayor of the city of Johannesburg and the Department of Home Affairs must go and meet, that is the solution, and give a response to this forum before the 27th of November on how they are going to solve this problem. It's not for us to solve it for them. The solution is they go and meet, and not only meet, they must respond and tell us what they decided, what is the plan, and the date is important before the 27th of November.
Thank you.
And then I've got a problem with our agenda. Agenda item number 5. I didn't know we called brothers here because agenda point number 5 says briefing by Councillor Muzwandile Masina Mashaba. Do we have brothers here? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Chairperson. We humans have a tendency to operate out of fear.
What is your name?
I just want to know what initiatives have there been within...
But we said we must introduce the...
Oh, I'm Gisela Opperman. I'm from COGTA, the committee. I want to know what initiatives have there been within municipalities to communicate the status of immigrants to local communities in order to reduce violent attacks and enhance social cohesion and ultimately to integrate migrants into communities. And then last week I was on oversight in Polokwane and my driver was a foreign national. He's been in the country since '96 and he's an electrician. He cannot find work. Does the department or can the department not capture the qualifications and scarce skills of migrants and asylum seekers, since our country are in dire need of scarce skills and they are not all lost to the informal?
Thank you.
Then I want to know, what mechanisms are currently in place to prevent future xenophobic attacks and improve quick response prevention of criminal looting, theft and murders of foreign shop owners, as recently also occurred in Belleville around the corner? And then I want to know, can the mayor, Mashaba, give me an estimation of government-provided housing used illegitimately or bought illegally by foreign nationals from our locals, because it is a local government problem and therefore we cannot make any inroads into our housing backlog?
Thank you.
No, thanks, Chair. My name is Musa Chaban. I only have 3 issues, Chair, to submit to the leadership, and also appreciating the 3 presentations, Chair, that have been made to the committee. I think it will be important, Chair, to note that it was an important session to convene so that we better understand the work that we are faced with as committees, because we are from our oversight work. And since the 6th Parliament, we have received reports from the Department of Home Affairs identifying issues of progress on the area of civil and on the area of immigration. I think that is important for this session to have convened, to appreciate the progress that has been made and also the challenges that our governance and local municipalities are facing. I think that's the first observation, Chair, that we may need to elevate. The second point, Chair, is that Councillor Mashaba, I think now at this point, you will appreciate that coining the proposal, the presentation on the dysfunctional state of home affairs. And I agree with this input earlier on to say that he is here to subcommittee to also appreciate the work that the department is doing, but also to find counsel on some of the issues that may not be better located to his comprehension at the level of the municipalities. I think that we must appreciate that culture. But it would be important also, Chair, on record, Chair, to dismiss this narrative that suggests that Department of Home Affairs is dysfunctional. I think it's important that we may need to do that. It may not assist us, Chair, to direct the Minister and Councillor Mashaba to meet alone. We may need to elevate the matter to SALGA, because as the body that is presiding over the local municipalities, to elevate some of the issues that are being raised by the municipalities. If you listen carefully to the presentation of SALGA, it gives clear recommendations in terms of how we need to assist each other to move forward on the challenges that are facing our society and local government municipalities. We may need to have that session of the municipality, SALGA, and also looking on the effects in the rural areas in terms of these undocumented foreign nationals. So that, I think, that is a submission that we must make. We must dismiss the narrative that suggests that this meeting is only convened primarily to deal with the issues of the love letters that has been going in and out between the letters that have been going between the minister of previous ministers and the Councillor Mashaba. We must elevate the matter in terms of the issues that are raised in the context that the Councillor is raising, so that we're having focus in terms of how we're moving forward in line with what we're tasked to do. The BMA, Border Management Authority, I think the Minister, you have outlined in terms of the elements that will assist us once the matter has been passed through. And I think we must take appreciation to the programs that will be unfolding in terms of how we're going to move forward and the issues that are arising from all of us as stakeholders of the departments. Lastly, Chair, is the organs of state, the cluster, security cluster. I think Honorable Makluba has tried to elevate the matter. There's a need for SALGA to look on that area at the level of local municipalities, on how jointly we're able to converge, to look on the matters that affect our society, the crime, undocumented foreign nationals, and the impact on how it influences our economic stability at the level of local municipalities. So those are the issues that I think, Chair, we may need also to take forward as a planning forward for the Department of Home Affairs, local mayors, and SALGA in particular. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. If you check your time, is exactly 1 o'clock. I'm going to rule that all the responses are going to be in writing, but I'm going to give those who presented in that order, in that chronological order, to do the close up, but we will expect a seriously written responses on whatever issues were raised and comments. So we'll start with the president of SALGA, and then the Honorable Mashaba, Honorable Masina, and then the minister. I'm sure in two minutes, just to give an overall response of what we're going to be writing to us about.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I will not be long, but there were 2 key issues which I think were raised. One was in line with the 80%, 20% study. And remember the emphasis that it's a study. So which means we may have to pull the study, even ask the Gauteng City Region Observatory. The committee can do that as a matter of interest. But also let's find where does the perception comes from. Is it from our naked eye? Has the perception of the other way around as compared to the study, where does it come from? Or is it by the naked eye as we walk around and we have not done proper calculation? And it's not a once-off, if you recall. It happens periodically and it's embedded in the city of Johannesburg. So I think we may call for discussions and debates and even looking further into whether the status quo does change. Has it changed? Has it maintained the same baseline, or what is happening? With regard to participation, SMME, if you will recall in my presentation, I did indicate very well that we have got SMME, we have got Department of Labor, we have got Competition Commission, besides the assistance that we get as well from States SA. I don't want to elaborate more on XenoWatch. We know the app, we overlook it. This is an assumption which is so wrong, which assumes that in Mthatha, for example, because it's not a metro, there are no illegal, immigrants. Now, I want to tell you about a small city where he says he had crossed at the border by feet. People cross in the Limpopo River and share space with crocodiles. So it's not necessarily that they will possibly come through a border gate in an orderly, organized fashion. But to people of Musina, how many incidences do you think had happened in Musina and they are not part of XenoWatch? What is the difference? It's possible for a person to have access and infrastructure in the city of Johannesburg and report it than in a rural area in the border of Tsingi between Mozambique and Limpopo. They don't even have Wi-Fi. So in XenoWatch, they won't appear. And it doesn't mean that is not happening. So it is important that rural municipalities are also recognized that they have a problem. And maybe let me also talk about this thing of the minister, because we work as SALGA. There are 257 mayors in South Africa. That is why in my disclaimer, Chairperson, was that I had wished we possibly would have spoken earlier on, because I would have advised from SALGA slightly different. Now, can you imagine 257 municipalities and their mayors writing all of them to a minister of health? I don't have a clinic, please come to my corner. I don't have a school, please come to my corner. I don't have a border, what, please come to my corner. It is not manageable for ministers to do that. Now, we have got 205 local municipalities. The reason for this centralization, not only at the Home Affairs level, is to assist national government to be able to consolidate municipalities and operate from a general point of view so that management is manageable. And we are saying the president is expanding from this 257 because it's not manageable. He's saying let's take the district approach and deal with 44 executive mayors. It's still cumbersome, but it's relatively better as compared to 257. And we will deal with that at that level.
Thank you.
And assist.
Thank you, Chairperson and honorable members, for your invaluable time. As I indicated in my opening remarks, that us as the City of Johannesburg, we are the ones who pleaded for your intervention. And I think there is more than sufficient evidence over the last 3 years of our attempts to do so. So we really appreciate this opportunity at long last that I think we can engage in good faith with Home Affairs to find solutions to the problems being faced by our residents out there, our local and our foreign nationals. So thank you very much for this great opportunity, and I really look forward to engaging with the Minister going forward. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Chairperson and the leadership of government. I think that when we say that we were ambushed, it was just out of the shock of the headlines, but out of the engagement, I think there is greater clarity that there is work being done there at the level of Home Affairs, but the fact that we need to just take into cognizance that there are a number of other critical institutions which are part and parcel of the security cluster that are dealing with the movement of people between our borders. And I think that point has been made. I do accept that the issue of social cohesion is one fundamental point that must not be left out in our discussion, so that it's not just about looking at people and their color saying where do they come from, they must go back. Is what sort of program do we build as government, all spheres of government, in ensuring that people learn to coexist so that we can start talking about critical issues, because if we close our borders, we will not be able to achieve the aspirations of the Continental Free Trade Agreement and other such important agreements in the country. So I think that we look forward to a much more coordinated effort by SALGA, so that municipalities can deposit some of the few things that they are doing in respective municipalities in dealing specifically with issues that have confronted us over time. But I think that there has been great value in just creating an understanding, but sometimes it's not always about decisions, about creating a common understanding of what needs to be done or how government work that propels us to move forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chairperson and honorable members of the committee. I still really believe that we did not need to come to this type of meeting for Home Affairs Department to engage with the City Council of Johannesburg. We still want to do so and take the advice or the proposal from the President of SALGA that we must do it at that level. May I appeal to the committee that you don't tie us to the term of office of Councillor Mashaba in resolving this problem as it was proposed. Because he himself said this is not about him, it's about our people, yes. So if you tie us to him on the 27th of November, it's going to cause us many serious problems. I just hope the committee doesn't do that to us. We'll deal with whoever comes in and deal with SALGA. Yes, but we are still prepared to meet with this. Johannesburg is the core center of the economy of this country. We cannot allow it to get into problems. Now, Chairperson, we're going to answer in writing, as you said. But there are a few things I just want to explain. Like, people believe our solution is only the Border Management Authority. Maybe we did not explain enough. The graph I've showed you where there was a peak and the department was overwhelmed. The department did not cede They came with an agent plan, and that agent plan was special permits. For instance, the calculation was that most of the inflow was from Zimbabwe. You all know what happened economically in Zimbabwe. The department came with what is called Zimbabwe special permit, where it said every single illegal immigrant from Zimbabwe, please come, we'll give you a special permit. And they were given for 4 years. In other words, knowing very well that these are illegal, but you give them that special permit that you are here in South Africa for 4 years, because it was believed that during that 4 years, they will then regularize themselves. And some of them did, but others just ignored it and went underground. That 4 years expired, it was extended. And when it was done, it was 279,000 illegal immigrants. The same was done to Lesotho, where they said all the Basotho who are in this country can come forward and they will be given documentation. Unfortunately, only 94,000 came. I met the minister, I think a month ago, and he told me that no, there were more than 94,000, there were more than 250,000, but others were scared to come forward because they thought this was a ploy to send them back home. So they went underground. Now, this one is expiring in December. I've just submitted the document to Cabinet to renew it. So I just want you to know that certain things are happening, which we might not be reporting about, including the Wembley Stadium issue. We'll respond to you because Home Affairs officials did go there. Yeah.
Thank you.
The last issue, Chairperson, I really want to appeal. When people hijack a building in the center of Johannesburg, they are criminals. It doesn't matter what their color is or what their language is or where they come from or what document they are carrying, whether an ID or an illegal document or illegal migrant or what. It's a crime, and that needs police. It needs police, even if possible, if they are armed, you call the army. Then it's then that you'll call Home Affairs and say, among the people who have hijacked the building who were arrested, we found illegal immigrants will come. Home Affairs cannot rush where a building has been hijacked. Honestly, we don't have that. It's not our mandate, it's not that capacity. So I just want the House not to believe that we are holding the city of Johannesburg at ransom where their buildings are hijacked and they can't do anything because of Home Affairs. That's a crime, and you must use the crime-combating agencies like the police, if possible the army, like it's happening here in the city of Cape Town, to free those buildings. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. And thank you very much to everyone, to members of the media, and I see the house is full, and all other people who have an interest on this matter. I should say this, that this was one of the most important meetings, because the information shared here by the department, by yourselves, Honorable Minister, is quite a very important information that not only people who are in this room must hear it, but South Africans must also hear the attempts that are being done to ensure that we solve the challenges that faces this country. The presentation and the recommendations from SALGA, I think it's what must be carried forward by ourselves, both COGTA and Home Affairs, and other sector departments that we may need to bring in. We still need to bring in the Department of Small Business and check what are their intervention. So this matter, it's a matter that needs in the main a lot of other departments. Like the Minister has said, now in our borders, we have about 7+ departments that are managing. And what we seek to achieve with the bill that we have introduced in the National Assembly and now is in the NCOP, is that the Border Management Authority is going to bring all these departments under one roof, under the authority. That will be an important milestone for the people of this country. And secondly, that out of these 7+ departments, we have about 58 legislation that are being managed at the border level. That creates a challenge because laws have been passed all these years since 1652, laws have been passed. So what the Border Management Authority will do is to synchronize all this legislation, come up with one legislation that deals with the borders. I think that is an important issue that the department has reported and which we assist with also as Parliament. I think that will be important, Minister. And the recommendation made by Executive Mayor Masina and all the other recommendations made by the Mayor Mashaba are issues that we need to take forward. And we know that it's unfortunate that the presentation speaks to issues that are there, but it's written dysfunctional. I think for our purpose, we may have to retract the heading. Also for the purposes of members of the media having to report that the meeting was about dysfunctional state of Home Affairs. I think the meeting was mainly about sifting all the challenges that Home Affairs faces. As myself as the chairperson, I've learned a lot in terms of all the presentation. And I would wish that we elevate this presentation. After we got the responses, we elevate all this presentation and the recommendation and take all the issues forward. And once the minister were not really holding you up to the 27th of November, but indeed you may need to, as practical as possible, make this the meeting possible so that we find solution. Any contribution that we get, not only from people who hold offices, but even from members of the community, contribution that seeks to bring a solution towards the problem that we have around undocumented migrants, it's welcome, and we'll listen to everyone. We'll stop at any point. But we need to note that the problem that we have, it's mainly the problem of undocumented migrants. It's not a problem that we don't want people from other countries, particularly in Africa, to come to our country. Any person who comes to the country legally and he produces document, he does not do crime, he does not engage in other wrong activities, that person is welcome in the country. We have recently signed the Africa Free Trade Agreement. What does it mean? It means once we have signed it, what must follow is the free movement of people into the continent. That will then assist economic growth and economic development. So Home Affairs is at the center of these issues. But to think that anyone who's in South Africa and is not from South Africa is wrong, I think it will be a wrong perception. And this meeting has assisted Minister in giving a clear light on what we need to do and what must local government do, because we have mainly now spoke about people who are in the city centers and their percentages. We have a huge number of people in our rural who come from Somalia and Bangladesh. They are operating spaza shop in every village of this country. That is another matter that we'll have to take it up with Department of Small Business and other related sectors. But I think we are doing a very good work, Honorable Minister. Continue to do the good work, and let's continue to take the work very serious, and we really do not, what? The written responses, I'm being advised that at least by next week, Monday, we must get the written responses. Then we will send them to all other members, and we will appreciate that. And as the Joint Committee and members of Parliament, we don't take very light the work you do, Minister, and the work you do, Honorable Masina, Honorable Mashaba, and Honorable President of SALGA. We appreciate every input that you do to the people of this country. The meeting stands adjourned. Thank you very much.